Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. You know, there is a war on drugs. There has been a war on drugs ever since the 80s. It was Ronald Reagan who started the war on drugs. Lately, the drug that is the scourge of America is fentanyl. It seems like this has popped up out of nowhere. In fact, if you believe any administration in the last 8 to 12 years, you believe that it's come from Mexico and that it's come over that southern border and that is where it's come from and that is where it's being pushed from and that this is a relatively new problem. It isn't. As a matter of fact, it first hit the streets 1991. Or 1990. We'll have to ask our guest, John Madinger. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It's an old problem. In fact, it's a medical situation that had a bit of a, like most illegal drug issues, a medical solution that gets turned into something evil. It gets broke bad, so to speak. A lot of times you get a chemist who's curious and decides, you know what, I can find a good or a bad solution from it. Chemists don't know good or bad. They just know, right? They find a chemical solution, they play with chemicals, and there is no good or bad when it comes to playing with chemicals. And what's interesting about this book that we're going to talk about today, Lethal Doses, the story behind the Godfather of Fentanyl, a wonderful book that our guest John Madinger has wrote, and I highly recommend you read this book. It's fascinating. Is when it comes to science, there's no good or evil. There just is. And the subject of our book, George Erik Marquardt, the man who figured out how to bring fentanyl to the streets. He didn't do it because it was good or evil, but he realized that if they took fentanyl out of the surgical arena and put it on the streets, it was going to kill people. And there were implications, but it wasn't his implication. And that was a huge moral weight. We're going to talk about it with our guest today, John Madinger. Let me tell you a little bit about him before we bring him in. John joined the drug war in 1974 as a sheriff's deputy. He then served as a narcotics agent, supervisor, and administrator and a special agent criminal investigator with the U.S. Department of the Treasury before hitting mandatory retirement age in 2010. He spent 15 years of that time in undercover assignments from Florida to Honolulu and worked major fraud and money laundering cases, becoming one of the country's leading authorities in money laundering and the author of a textbook, Money Laundering, A Guide for Criminal Investigators, which is used by universities, by the Departments of Justice and Treasury and foreign governments around the world. John holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Indiana University and a master's degree in history from the University of Hawaii and graduated from the Oklahoma State Police Academy, the Drug Enforcement Administration's National Academy, and was the honor graduate in the Treasury Criminal Investigation Training Program. He's received numerous awards and citations from the Internal Revenue Service, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force Program, and was certified to testify in federal court as an expert witness on money laundering. As part of his job, he developed and taught classes on money laundering and financial crime in the United States, Asia, Europe, Africa, and the Caribbean, working overseas in over 20 countries. Now, on the literary front, he wrote another textbook called Confidential Informant, Law Enforcement's Most Valuable Tool, and a history of the opium trade, Opium Kings of Old Hawaii, as well as 2 novels, Death on Diamond Head and Pipe Dreams, and a memoir, Going Under, Kidnapping, Murder, and a Life Undercover for Wild Blue Press. A finalist for Killer Nashville's Silver Falcon Award. He's also received awards for fiction, nonfiction, short stories, academic writing, and even poetry. Let's welcome into True Crime Tuesday, John Madinger. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Well, thank you for coming in and being on the program. John, this book is so fascinating. I mean, this book, I get chills just thinking about, the trip that you bring us on in this book, because you talk about a scourge that you described, or you quoted somebody in this book, and I don't remember who it was you quoted, that said this, that I believe it was a law enforcement official that said, this is Pandora's box. Once the lid comes off of fentanyl, there were, 1,400 different chemical combinations for fentanyl that could be exposed to the drug-taking public? Is that what it was?
Well, they've discovered 1,400 different analogs or chemical cousins of fentanyl, compositions that could potentially produce some kind of pharmaceutical output, pain killing, or getting high or whatever, so have some pharmaceutical effect. Yeah, but actually, I had a conversation with a chemist about this, and based on the 4 different methods that are used to prepare fentanyl these days, one of which was developed by our character in this book, there potentially are 3.7 billion possible combinations. So it's almost infinite. And one chemist that I talked to said, I asked, how many variations do you think there could be? And he said it's infinite. So it's a fascinating drug, and that's one of the reasons why George Erik Marquardt, Squeak, the character in the book, that's one of the things that attracted him to it, was the fact that it was he was able to develop compounds that nobody had ever seen before, had ever developed before. And that was one of the things that he liked about this, was that it had such variety, and he could be the first to conquer that mountain, that Everest. And that was one of the things that appealed to him.
Now, John, when you think about it, and of those 3.7 billion, there's none of them that's non-lethal. I mean, they all will kill you. And it just takes a small amount to kill you.
Yeah, that's probably true. There are a couple of variations that have no effect, that have no pharmacological value or whatever, but most of them do. And that's one of the things that he was kind of looking for, was that he was working with 2 different, I don't know if you want to get into this now before we introduce him, but he was working with 2 different substances that his customers wanted. One was fentanyl, and the other was an analog compound called 3-methylfentanyl. Mm-hmm. 3-methylfentanyl is 6,600 times more powerful than morphine, and it's like incredibly potent. And he was looking for he called it the Goldilocks solution, where you had a substance that was about the same potency and an effect as heroin, but it didn't have the lethality that some of these other ones did. It would be easier to handle in cutting it and getting it out on the street and distributing it, because he was well aware that this was going to kill people, and he was concerned that was going to bring a lot of heat to their operation, and which of course it did. And he wanted to avoid that if at all possible.
Well, we'll leave that and let that lie, just so people can get an idea of where we're going here today on the show. But I just want to set that up for people, that fentanyl, and it's still a problem today. Keep in mind that they thought that they can control this monster. I mean, and that's what fentanyl is. It's a monster, a monster that's gotten away. And I don't think there's an end in sight to this problem. Do you?
No, I don't. I don't think there's a law enforcement solution, and I was in law enforcement for 35 years. I don't believe there's a law enforcement solution. I think you look at this situation where in 1991, 92, 93, he had the only fentanyl lab in America. He was the source for street fentanyl in the country. And when DEA busted him in 93, it ended. The fentanyl problem ended in the United States completely. Overdose deaths went back to zero or near zero, and there was no seizures of phenyl hydrochloride, the street fentanyl, out there. So, that was a situation in 91 when there was one lab in the United States. Now there's untold number of labs in Mexico, mostly in China, in India, and any other place in the world where you can make it. And the process for making it when he started out was pretty difficult, expensive, and required some talent and some ability to pull off. Nowadays, thanks to his development of an alternative formula, was commonly used until recently in most of these clandestine settings, it's a lot easier to do. It's a lot easier to pull off, and I just don't see. I don't see a solution for it, a law enforcement solution for it at all. I had no way to keep it out of the country, I don't think.
A question we'll answer later on in the program as we talk a little bit about George Erik Marquardt, Squeak, is why on earth someone would want to make a drug this powerful that kills people, that makes them OD so quickly and kill them. And we'll talk about that as well as we get a little bit later into the program, because the answer is astounding. We'll talk about that later. Let's get into George Erik Marquardt, Squeak, and let's talk about his early beginnings here, John. Tell us a little bit about his early beginnings and his early upbringing, because it's a little fascinating as to who this man is and how talented he is, yet how seemingly traumatic his upbringing was.
Right. A very, very interesting character, which, most good books, you want to see an interesting character, and you couldn't ask for one more fascinating to me than this guy. He was born in Waukesha, Wisconsin in January 1946, so at the very, very beginning of the baby boom. He was raised in a traditional family in small town America. Growing up in the 1950s, they knew from the very beginning that he was a very intelligent child. He was reading early and talking early, and obviously had a lot of intelligence. His family recognized that. His mother in particular encouraged him to read, and he was reading far above his age level, very early. Fascinated by science, mostly by electricity. He got very interested in physics and X-rays and that type of thing. And he was using science and developing his abilities in that area very early. And by the time he was 12 years old, he was already working with chemistry. He had the chemistry sets that you got for when you were a kid in those days, and he had more and more of that stuff down in the basement, where his parents sort of let him have free run of the place. And that's when he broke bad. He broke bad at 12. He was age 12. He started manufacturing bootleg alcohol down in the basement and selling it in Waukesha, where I guess there's a lot of demand for booze, probably especially in the wintertime.
It's cold up here, John. It really is.
Yeah, he was selling it to making money from his chemistry very early on. By the time he was 14, his talents were sort of on display, and he was contacted by his family doctor, who wanted to know if he could make heroin from from anything, and the doctor, he said, yeah, he could, but you need opium to make heroin. And that gets back to your question that you were just asking a minute ago, why you would want to make something like fentanyl, because you're replacing something like heroin, which requires a long chain of growers to sellers to people that refine it and people that manufacture it, and so that's one of the reasons why fentanyl is taken over, is because it replaces this whole I don't need opium anymore to manufacture it. They found the opium in the basement of a Waukesha drugstore, where it was a some expired cough preparation.
But this doctor wanted this heroin because he was addicted, right?
Yeah, he was addicted, and that wasn't an uncommon thing back then. In those days, very much higher level of addiction in the medical profession because they had more access than the average citizen did, right? To narcotics, they could get pharmaceutical narcotics like morphine or methadone or Demerol or whatever, and there was a much higher addiction. It was estimated, I think it was like 17 or 20 times higher than the average population in the medical profession. And so he had an addiction problem, and he wanted to know if Squeak could make him some heroin. And Squeak said, "Yeah, if you give me some opium, I can." And they got some opium, and he made 3 ounces of pure heroin and gave it to the doctor, which, I point out in the book that, yeah, 3 ounces of pure heroin will go a long way, but it's not going to last forever. So when the doctor needed more heroin, he came back to him and said, "Can you make some more?" And they looked for more opium, but they couldn't find any. So he said, "Well, but I can make it out of codeine. I can make it out of Tylenol with codeine tablets if you bring me the." Well, those are not much. There's not much control on those, so the doctor could get all of those he wanted. So he was able to do that. But that shows his kind of versatility, I think, was that, well, if there was a problem with one source or one angle or one line or whatever, that he could move to another line, he could move to another source and still produce the product that he was flexible about. And so that was one of the things that made him so dangerous as a clandestine chemist, was that he had the ability to think outside the box and move outside the box and create without these limitations that a lot of other lesser minds or whatever would have had.
Yeah, he was incredibly brilliant that way. As you pointed out, he would move from one source to another and follow the chemical chain and pull that next alternative up and use it and continue to use it. The other thing he would do as well is he would find physical uses or physical ways to draw that chemical compound out and keep himself safe while doing it, or find a physical way to draw those chemical compounds out that was maybe a little unorthodox. Just fascinating stuff, or ways to get. The other part of this too is ways to get the equipment he needed to draw these chemical compounds out. He started to boost equipment from different colleges at one point.
Yeah, he got kicked out of high school for truancy in the last week of his senior year. They kicked him out for not attending, and the same weekend he won the Wisconsin State Science Fair. So that shows a little of his talent and ability, which he clearly wasn't applying in school, but he had the ability to do it and apply it in other areas. And what he did was he went over to Marquette University and became a laboratory, got hired on as a laboratory assistant, and he took over their chemistry lab and used that to produce LSD and mescaline and other hallucinogens. At the time, those weren't illegal. This was the early 1960s. It was actually before the big hippie era. And he produced these hallucinogens. They were legal at the time, but he didn't have a market for them. He was mostly doing it just for experimentation. He did send a batch to Timothy Leary, who was a big LSD promoter at the time, and he eventually tried to develop a market for them when the government banned them, and then people were making them. But at the time, he was running using the lab to make the hallucinogens, but he was also going from lab to lab, getting access to their equipment and stealing electronic equipment, laboratory equipment, gear, and whatever, and selling it. And that was his source of income, because he wasn't making any money off of selling drugs at the time. He was making it from from stealing equipment, which is what first landed him in prison.
One of the funny things you mentioned in the book is that when he sent a batch of this LSD, which I guess was good stuff, and he had even at one point, didn't he form a relationship with somebody who knew Janis Joplin at that point?
He went out to the West Coast after he got out of prison from this equipment charge in Wisconsin. He went out to the West Coast to San Francisco, and this would have been right after the Summer of Love in, was that 68?
Mm-hmm.
He was out there and he met Janis Joplin the year before she died, provided LSD to her, provided LSD to the Grateful Dead. He was supplying the Grateful Dead for a little while. They had a chemist by the name of Owsley Stanley. They called him Bear. He was the king of LSD at the time, but he was facing a federal charge, and they kind of lost confidence in him and his abilities. So they were going to replace Bear with Squeak. So that was going to be that was the plan. And he went back to the Midwest to collect his gear and stuff, and got busted again for stealing some more equipment, and went to prison. So that never came about. But he was, for a while there, he looked like he was going to become the new LSD king out in California.
You'd mentioned in the book that one of the things that kind of turned him off to the whole thing was he had given he was kind of thrilled because he had given Timothy Leary this batch of LSD, but then in others, but the whole thing was it wasn't paying off because they just wanted more free, these hippies wanted more free LSD. They weren't paying for it.
Yeah, Leary wanted it. He said Leary liked the sample that he sent, but he didn't want to pay for it. He said had some theory that the LSD should be free for everybody, and he was like, I declined that. I wasn't going to go along with that philosophy. and then when he went out to California, he said, yeah, everybody was taking drugs. They were taking drugs like mad, but nobody wanted to pay for them. So these goddamn hippies, they all want free drugs. He hated that. So.
Well, at least Squeak was a free market guy, even in the Summer of Love.
Yeah. A capitalist, yeah.
Yes, he was. Yeah, you got to admire him for that. He was a forefront and forethinker as far as that goes, and knowing that you had to remain a capitalist in this business in order to survive. Although, kind of looking ahead, he never really was ultra rich. Doing this. I mean, he kept his head above water, but he was never swimming in money doing this thing, was he?
No, not at all. He was not, and I've talked with him multiple times about this motivation, because I work narcotics, and narcotics traffickers, they're in it for the money. I mean, they're taking big risks for big money. And he was willing to take the risks, but he really wasn't interested in the money so much. He was more interested in the chemistry. So people say, well, he's like Walter White. Well, no, he really wasn't. Like Walter was in it for the money, and then it got even darker. But Squeak was interested in it for the chemistry. He liked doing things that nobody else could do or would do, and he was more interested in that. He never showed off the flash or he didn't buy. He always drove a crummy old truck. And every time I ever encountered him back in the day, he was driving some old pickup truck, and he wore sloppy clothes and didn't dress up, and no real estate, big houses or swimming pools or anything. It just didn't interest him. And what he wanted to do was have enough money so that he could keep busy in his lab working on projects that interested him. That was his thing for his whole life.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's between the pictures in the book and your descriptions of different chapters in the book, you can definitely tell he's a dressed down kind of guy. You describe flannel shirts and overalls and stocking caps, and there's different pictures in the book that you're like, this is not the guy I imagined. When you're thinking of a guy who is getting along between city to city or settling down, but he's very much a down-to-earth kind of guy who you would blend in any Midwestern town, would blend in anywhere in the South, would blend in anywhere he would be, and you'd never assume that he was, dealing that kind of weight. That's for sure.
Yeah, he was very familiar with the way law enforcement worked. He originally he came to our attention in Oklahoma when I was working as an agent at the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. He came to our attention as an informant. He came to one of the agents with a story about an individual that was making methamphetamine in Oklahoma City, and he became an informant for us. And every time I ever saw him, and I met him in 1976, and every time I ever saw him in 76 and 77, 78, he always just looked like your basic down home dude, not a character that you'd really spend any time. You think, now that's not the biggest meth manufacturer in Oklahoma, not by any means, and always very casually dressed. He knew how law enforcement worked. He worked with us as an informant for, oh man, a year and a half, and so he knew how we operated, and he knew how to keep off of our radar to some extent, and it worked for him for a long time. He kept him out of trouble for quite a long time.
I tell you what, John, we're going to take our break here. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about what led up to you all running into him in Oklahoma and getting him eventually as an informant. He dabbled in LSD, but then he also decided to take that turn, which got him, heroin, LSD, eventually getting him into your sights there. We'll talk about what got him into your sights there in Oklahoma. We'll talk about the unique relationship in Oklahoma, because there's a very interesting relationship, informant, and what he did for you guys there in Oklahoma. And we'll also talk about what turns Squeak onto fentanyl and the morality of fentanyl with Squeak. It's very interesting what makes him turn the corner and decide to start playing with it. It's an interesting morality play here, John. When we talk about weighing life and death and what makes people make certain decisions, when you talk about fame versus, in a career, wanting to be known, because I don't think most people, if you say the name George Erik Marquardt, he's not a household name, right? If you say the name, if you say his name out there, if you're to say, do you know who the Godfather of Fentanyl is? Most people don't know who he is. And I think, to have put a product like that out on the market, was it worth it? I think I'm going to ask you that question when we come back. So the book is Lethal Doses, the story behind the Godfather of Fentanyl. John Madinger is our guest. Folks, you got to get this book. It is so incredibly fascinating to read about this metamorphosis of this incredibly dangerous drug and how the beginnings of this all started. John Madinger, again, our guest during the break. Go get the book. When we come back, we'll talk more about Squeak, and we'll talk about how the relationship, the metamorphosis of this relationship happened with Oklahoma, and how eventually he gets into fentanyl. We'll do that when we come back right here on the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guest is John Madinger. The book is Lethal Doses, the story behind the Godfather of Fentanyl. We're talking about George Erik Marquardt. He's known as Squeak. He's the subject of this book, and he is the Godfather of Fentanyl. Before we left everybody, John, we were talking about how you and your agency ran into Squeak. As we had been talking about the previous segment, he had been dealing in LSD, he had been dealing in heroin, he had been doing other things, he had been doing other drugs, and I think even he tried to master a drug called TMA at one point. Can you tell people what TMA is?
Yeah, TMA is 2,4,5-trimethoxyamphetamine. It's usually called TMA. It's an as methamphetamine or an amphetamine derivative. He thought that it was going to be the drug of the future because it had properties that were sort of hallucinogenic, and it also had the same properties as methamphetamine. So it was like the best of both worlds for him. And it hadn't been out on the street at all. He did manufacture it in Oklahoma. It was a little after, it was in 78 when he started manufacturing it for real. He was trying to make a bunch of it. And he said he tried some himself. He always tried to do a little of each of his drugs that he worked with, just to make sure he wasn't going to kill everybody, and to see what the effects were. He wasn't a big drug user. He didn't normally use drugs, but he tried to. He said, "Yeah, I knew this was going to be good when I saw the windows of the car melting." So it was that was his attraction to it, and we found him. He came to us actually at OBN in 1975 after he hooked up with another guy in Oklahoma called Bob Harris, and Harris was making methamphetamine, and methamphetamine, there was a market for meth in Oklahoma at the time, so it wasn't like LSD where people didn't want to pay for it, and he could actually make money from making meth and support his other research and interests by getting meth money. And so he hooked up with Harris and they started a lab, and then he went out one weekend and came back and the lab was gone. And Harris had figured, well, I know enough about this to do it myself and I'll just do it, and took all of the stuff, and he was very annoyed. He went to OBN and said, I think I know where you can find the lab. And sure enough, the agents went there and to Harris's house in Oklahoma City and found the lab. So that was how he became an informant for us, and that was how I initially met him. Was he was continued to work with us throughout 1976, and I met him in late '76. And we were going to do an undercover operation in Oklahoma City area, and we were going to set up a laboratory supply store and sell chemicals to shady characters and follow the chemicals back to the lab. And they wanted me to be the undercover agent because I was pretty new, wasn't from Oklahoma, didn't know a lot of people, and I said, well, yeah, okay, I'll do it, but I don't know anything about chemistry. I didn't take chemistry in college. That's not going to be the one to be able to tell you what chemicals go with what chemicals to do something. And so they said, don't worry, we've got somebody that can teach you everything you need to know. And that's how I met Squeak for the first time. He was going to be our informant for that project.
What's interesting too is you guys tried to keep it from him a little bit as to what the project was at the beginning, and he knew within 10 minutes what it was you guys were trying to do. Yeah,
he figured it out right away. He said, you guys are setting up a trick store. And I go, yeah, because I wasn't supposed to tell him that. He said, don't tell him that we're going to do this. Just tell him you need to know how to do clandestine chemistry. And I said, okay. And so we talked for a little while. And he goes, you're setting up a trick store. You're going to pull people in. And he really liked the idea because, he thought anybody that was dumb enough to fall for our plan and me deserved what they got. And so he was really enthusiastic participant up to a point. Early 77, after he testified at Harris's trial, he took off and disappeared on us and went up to the West Coast. And we sort of had to cancel the undercover operation because we didn't know where he was or who he told or whatever. So he went up to the West Coast and was making meth and sending it back down to Tulsa. And eventually he came back to Oklahoma and set up a lab in Beggs, which is a little town south of Tulsa. And that was where he was manufacturing TMA and methamphetamine. And we busted him, OBN busted him January of 1978. And that was really the key to the fentanyl thing, which nobody realized at the time, because he got convicted on that. He got 10 years. And they sent him first to Leavenworth, and then they transferred him to Lewisburg. And Lewisburg at the time was the sort of the East. They called it the East Coast Mafia, home prison for the mafia, because all of the major mobsters from New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, and Boston, wherever, they sent them all to Lewisburg, and he was housed on J Block, which was the Mafia Row. That's where all the mafiosi were housed, and he was housed next door to, or just down the hall from, Louis Cirillo. And when he told me that, I was later on, I went to talk to him later about it, and he said, yeah, I was there with Louis Cirillo. And I said, you know Louis Cirillo? And he goes, yeah, he was right down the hall from me in Lewisburg. Because I knew Louis Cirillo, and every narcotics agent in America knew Louis Cirillo, because he was considered to be the biggest heroin dealer in the country at the time.
Yeah.
And so what you had is a situation where you've got this extremely dangerous, completely amoral, conscienceless, brilliant chemist in prison next door to the biggest heroin dealer in the country. So when Louis Cirillo comes to him in January of 81 and says, with a Newsweek magazine article, and he says, he shows them the Newsweek article, and it says, is this real, or is this more cop bullshit? He says, he looked at the article, and it was an article about China White, a fentanyl analog that was on the street in California, and it killed a bunch of addicts in 1980. And they'd finally identified it, and it wasn't fentanyl, but it was close to fentanyl. It was one of the analog cousins of fentanyl. And Louis was interested, because he's looking at this thing, and he's saying, and the article is saying, you can use $2,000 to make these chemicals in a lab in wherever in the United States, and then you don't need heroin anymore. You don't need all of that. You could replace the entire American heroin trade with fentanyl. And so he didn't know, Squeak didn't know, because he'd never messed with fentanyl before. First time he'd heard of it. And he said, well, yeah, when he did a little research and talked to some friends outside, and he came back to him and said, yeah, this is potentially real. This is actually possible. So then Louis Cirillo wanted to know, can you do it? And his response was, if it's in the literature, I can do it. And that was his introduction to fentanyl.
He realized he could do it, but then he also realized how dangerous it was too, right? I mean, he started to go through the actual, mock-up of it and went, wow, this is a dangerous compound. Like, I could kill myself on this.
Yeah, and he almost did. He almost did when he was manufacturing it. He did pass out and wake up on the floor, and he said he didn't really even know how it had happened, but he knew that it was extremely dangerous. He also knew, and he said to all of the people that he was associated with throughout the conspiracy over the next few years, he said, there's no possible way to cut this safely. There's no way that you can make this safe for consumption without having overdose deaths. And he said, I have no idea what the lethal dosage is for this drug. We can make it. It's definitely feasible. It's possible to do, but I don't know what the bottom line is going to be as far as what it takes to get people high, what it takes to kill people. I don't know what that is. He's not a pharmacologist, but he's looking at it and he's doing it. Okay, there's just no way that in a street situation that these people are going to be able to cut this successfully without giving a bunch of what they call them hot shots, where they're fatal dosage. There's just no way that you can prevent that with fentanyl. And that's what we're seeing today. I mean, there's just no way that you can regularly keep the dosages down to under 2 milligrams, which is the estimated lethal dose for fentanyl. And that's what we're seeing today. It's why so many people are overdosing, is because it's just so difficult to control that. You're dealing in such small tolerances with the drugs that it's really hard to get a to master that, to make it any kind of safe. So,
on a side note here, John, when my grandmother was alive, she had a broken spine. She had osteoporosis all the way through her spine, and they used to give her fentanyl patches. I don't know if you remember these fentanyl patches. And I as well have a broken neck and broken spine. So not too long ago, I went to my pain clinic and I said, "Do you still do the fentanyl patches?" And they looked at me and they laughed and they said, "We haven't done those in probably 10, 15 years." Because what they used to do is, again, the small dealers would take and get a hold of these fentanyl patches. And then they would take the fentanyl out of the patches and they'd manufacture fentanyl pills out of those.
Right. See, fentanyl was originally developed in the late 1950s, patented in 1960 by Janssen Pharmaceutical in Belgium. And it was patented as an anesthetic. And it was licensed in the United States by FDA, or allowed as an anesthetic in 1968, I think was the year. And for the next 20 years, even the next 25 years, it was strictly approved only for anesthesia. So you had have a surgical situation where somebody's knocked out and the anesthesiologist is standing right there administering it. And so the opportunity for abuse was pretty limited. It didn't get out in the public. It was only in the hands of the pharmacist and the anesthesiologist. Mm-hmm. Anesthesiologists, 90% of the anesthesiologists who were treated for addiction in that time period were addicted to fentanyl, because that's what they had access to.
Yeah.
So in the early 2000s, the FDA approved it as a chronic pain. Mm-hmm. And they approved it in the form that you just mentioned, in the form of patch. And they've subsequently developed they call it a lollipop, but it basically a way of slowly releasing the drug into your system. Yeah. You don't get a big jolt of it all at one time. When Squeak was busted in 93 and the fentanyl overdoses stopped in America, they began to ramp up again in the early 2000s because of just what you said. There was more access to fentanyl. People had access to pharmaceutical fentanyl citrate on the street. They could get it in the form of these patches and extract the fentanyl from it and then shoot the fentanyl up. And then that was causing overdoses. Those overdoses continued until about 2014, 2015, when they call it non-pharmaceutical fentanyl, NPF, hit the street. And that's clandestinely manufactured overseas, mostly in Mexico. So that was the sort of timeline of fentanyl. It started out as a pure anesthetic, very valuable in anesthesia. The heart people say that it would be impossible to do modern heart procedures without it, because it doesn't depress blood pressure. It has a quick onset and a very fairly quick recovery time. Mm-hmm. So it's really good for patients. It's very good for surgery. It's on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines, something that we can't live without. But it began that way, and then it evolved when it was briefly, he was the only person manufacturing street fentanyl. Then that was what was causing the ODs. And the next phase, it was the diversion from these patches and whatever, where it was more out in the public. And now it's almost exclusively, 100% of it is non-pharmaceutical fentanyl manufactured clandestinely.
So it's such a fine line then. It's such a fine line between what's acceptable pharmaceutically and what's street fentanyl, and why fentanyl is getting such a bad name. Because right now you say the word fentanyl and the American public thinks bad. They think it's a recreational drug. I can't tell you how many people go, "Oh, I don't want that," when they go to the doctor, because they think street drug. And they don't realize I can't tell you how many times I've heard from nurses and doctors that are friends. They say, we don't even mention to a patient, or we try not to mention to it, that we're using fentanyl. But when we say it to them, they go, no, it's not the same stuff that you hear about on the news. It's pharmaceutical. It has its uses, and they have to explain that it's not the tablet form that you see, that looks like candy in a bag that the DEA has captured from the border, because it's gotten such a bad rap from all these different media reports that they're getting. And it seems like there's this big hodgepodge of a mess of different reports of people popping street drugs, or why the big mess here, John?
Well, the traffickers have seen a way to do what Louis Cirillo wanted to do back in the day, which was to replace the heroin trade. The heroin trade, you grow the poppies in Afghanistan, which is a long way away, and it gets processed into morphine somewhere in some other place and gets moved to Pakistan or wherever, and eventually it is trafficked all the way to the United States, across the southern border through the ports of entry or whatever. And so that's a long process, which you can eliminate in one step. Just make the fentanyl. The problem with the current problem is that a lot of people, and this is why I think fentanyl is such a game changer in terms of the war on drugs. The problem is that you get people that are using heroin, they're taking fentanyl now. They're as a substitute for heroin. They're heroin addicts, and those are the standard, traditional, typical junkie that people think about. But you also get these people that are taking, I've got a back pain, I'm going to take my doctor won't give me a oxycodone or won't give me a Vicodin, so I'm going to, I've got Joe down the street has some Vicodin, and sure enough, it looks like a Vicodin, but he doesn't know that contains a lethal dose of fentanyl. And he's not an addict. He's a home guy. He just has a problem with his back. And this is killing a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's almost an accidental poisoning. So, I mean, they're not intentionally seeking out fentanyl, but they're getting it. So to me, that's why this is a game changer, is because it's affecting people that are not your standard traditional junkies. Not that they deserve to die either, but people that don't understand necessarily the risk. And it's totally different in a hospital setting where you go in there and you've got an anesthesiologist sitting there right. I've had 2 surgeries in the last 2 years. Both times they gave me fentanyl.
Mm-hmm.
And I was glad to get it. I don't want to be conscious and in pain while I'm being operated on.
Right.
So, so it was the beneficial good thing that, it is the reason why it's on the World Health Organization's list. But you've also got this problem with the counterfeit drugs and the fentanyl powder, which there's no way to regulate the dose unless unless you're getting the pharmaceutical stuff. There's no way to regulate the dose on the street. And it's the tolerance between what they call an effective dose, which is what it takes to knock you out for surgery or to get you high, if that's what you're taking it for. The effective dose and the difference between that and the lethal dose is pretty fine. We're talking about milligrams, thousandths of a gram. The weight of a grain or two of salt. So when you look at that, overdoses are going to be inevitable. It's going to be one of those things where it's going to happen no matter how you try to educate. It's going to be really, really difficult to establish what you've got and what you're taking and what the effect is going to be. Very, very, very hard in a black market setting like this. And that's why I think it's a game changer myself. I think we're going to have to come up with some other solution because it's killing people that it shouldn't be killing.
And you pointed it out yourself. There's counterfeit pills out there. I mean, there's I myself am a chronic pain patient, and I get prescribed morphine. So, but there's counterfeit morphine pills out there. I think it was a counterfeit morphine pill that killed Prince, if I remember right. Or it was no, it was counterfeit Vicodin. That's what it was. He was looking for counterfeit Vicodin. But as you pointed out, there's counterfeit Vicodin. There's counterfeit perks out there. There's everything that people are looking for because again, the doctors aren't prescribing that for basic stuff. But the question I think a lot of people have is why are people or why are dealers cutting these counterfeit pills with fentanyl? And that brings us right back to the story, which is this. And I want to get back to this question, and that's this in the story, and that's there's a part in the story where Squeak is faced with this dilemma, and he realizes that it only takes just this, as you just pointed out so eloquently, it only takes just a fine amount, and basically it knocks out not only pain, but it knocks you out, boom, he has this incident in the lab. And he's realizing that there's going to be a lot of deaths. And he's warning his associates, there's going to be a lot of deaths. It's going to happen. If we put this out on the street, you can't cut this stuff. It just, you can step on it so many times. And when we say step on it, for those who don't know, so you've got your pure product, which you make, but then you've got to use different types of fillers. And what types of fillers do they use with this product?
Mannitol's one. It's a laxative, baby laxative. It's white powder. Inositol's another one that is used. You can buy these sort of like vitamins or supplements. They're not hard to get. Any kind of at one point they used a sugar. So it was you can cut it with almost anything. The problem is that unless you use pretty high-tech equipment, and they had one of those, they had a rotary evaporator, which can be used to mix substances in a relatively safe way, but they didn't use it, and eventually they threw it in Boston Harbor. Unless you have that, you're going to get hot spots inside your package. You're going to get, when they package it up in these little they call them dime bags, little plastic packages, you're going to get some that have 1 milligram, or have some that have 2 milligrams. Some of them will have 4. You just never know. It's like playing Russian roulette, and you just never know if you're getting one that has the lethal dose in it or not. And he was well aware of that, and he warned the people, hey, there's no way that you can do this the way you've done this in the past. There's no way that you can cut this safely. And he knew that it was going to cause problems. He knew it was going to cause deaths.
So February 1991, he and his associates put it out on the street, right?
For the first time, yeah.
Under the name Tango Cash.
Well, it was produced, they just produced the powder. It was given to some dealers in the Bronx, New York City, and they put it out in these small dime bags, packages, about 40 milligrams of powder, and sold it out in the Bronx in the first day of February in 1991.
And that was the first official introduction to the American public of fentanyl under what users thought they were getting was heroin.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was fentanyl. And when you would go to test it, or when authorities would go to test it, it came up with no narcotic value, but it came up as fentanyl, correct?
It did. It came up as, they found that it was an average of 4 milligrams of fentanyl per bag, which is twice the lethal dose of fentanyl for an average person.
Jeez.
So this was kind of I hate to put it this way, but it was kind of an experiment for them, because they didn't know, and he warned them this too. He said, I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know how much it's going to take to get somebody high. I don't know how much it's going to take to kill them. So their first estimate was, I think they produced 50 grams of pure fentanyl, and they cut that with 950 grams of cut or filler material.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a kilo, basically kilogram of fentanyl mix, but they did it in the standard traditional way, which was a bucket and some strainers and some spatulas and whatever, and they cut it just like they would have done heroin, and that wasn't nearly enough to prevent overdose deaths. And sure enough, 12 people died in the first 2 days, and there are about 20 more in the next couple of weeks. So it was a lot of people. It was a disaster for the street drug market in New York City. But it was a big success for the group, for the conspiracy, because now they had a better idea about how to dilute it, how much cut they needed to put into it to reduce the fatalities and create that repeat business that all the drug traffickers are looking for.
But at that same time, they brought the heat down on themselves, because now the entire spotlight of the federal government is on them, because now they know you just introduced a brand new product that they brought a blowtorch to a fist fight, pretty much.
And Squeak said, he said, I knew the DEA was never going to stop, because if they didn't get us, they were going to have to deal with this again and again, which is exactly what's happening now. So yeah, DEA went all out from that point on to try and find this. I mean, it was their number one priority case in the entire country. So they were trying hard to find the people behind this before more people died, and they couldn't. I mean, it took 2 years for them to find, because he was operating out of a 620 square foot shack in Wichita, Kansas, and nobody had any idea where the lab was until very late in the investigation. And once they found it, they were able to get to the lab and stop it. But for 2 years, they were the only source of fentanyl in America.
It's amazing. It's amazing. The book is amazing itself. Lethal Doses, the story behind the Godfather of Fentanyl. Before we leave people today, John, what's interesting is I'm based out of Minnesota here, out of the Twin Cities, but there's a story about Faribault, Minnesota, and it's one of the more hysterical stories, where there's a part in the book where Squeak is with his girlfriend and I believe her brother. Is that the case?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Rex and Carla.
Yeah. And they're traveling from the West Coast, and they're trying to make a getaway out of the West Coast, and they're having a bit of a road trip, and they're going from campground to campground, and they're evading the law. And Squeak is kind of looking at it in a romantic type of way, because in his words, if this life isn't about making drugs and evading the law and having a romantic look at things, then what is life really about? And so somehow he ends up in Faribault, Minnesota, and he has a bit. It kind of comes to an end for him here in Minnesota, but I guess we didn't do the best job of serving him with a search warrant, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and I guess it all fell apart here.
Yeah, he was being chased at the time by OBN, Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics, sent 2 agents up to the West Coast to try and find him, because we knew he was sending speed back down to Tulsa, and he found out that they were after him, and that one of his distributors had been arrested in Wichita, and so he took off, and they went by car across the northern tier and into Minnesota, and they stopped in. At first, they stopped in Albert Lee, which I guess is south of Faribault.
Yep.
And he set up a lab. Wherever he stopped, he set up a lab so that he'd make some drugs and ship them out to Oklahoma. and they had a lab in the basement of a feed mill in Albert Lee, and he said that they had a problem with one of the tenants. I assume this is the story you're referring to,
Mm-hmm.
and the tenant was somebody that was involved in duck hunting. I guess that's a popular pastime in Minnesota,
Oh, yes. Yep.
and he had all his duck decoys there in the basement of the feed mill, which was supposed to be rented exclusively by Squeaks. So they had a sort of, I don't know, a landlord tenant or a tenant tenant dispute, and he decided it was time to get out. So, but before he left, he decided he'd leave this guy a little present, and he and his partner, he said they wrecked a couple of the ducks by the decoys by sawing the heads off and turning it on backwards, and then they put chemicals on some of the other ones so that they were basically, nasty smelling and yucky. And then he said that was, I thought that was kind of juvenile, and I said something to him about that, and he goes, yeah, and the other one wasn't so funny. And he said we drilled out one of the ducts and put in an ounce or two of metallic sodium. Well, metallic sodium is something that they say, chemists say, reacts violently with water.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a duck, that is a duck decoy's natural habitat, isn't it?
Yes.
Water.
Yep.
So I said that would make a memorable start to the duck season because it would blow up the duck pretty spectacularly. And then he moved up to Faribault. He moved his operation up to Faribault, and he rolled his pickup truck and was put in the hospital. And they discovered the makings of a drug lab in the pickup truck, and the sheriff's deputies, went to his apartment or motel room in Faribault and basically conducted an illegal search of the room there and found some stuff. They found most of a lab. They didn't find any meth. He'd finished a batch and it was somewhere else. And but it was, none of it was admissible. They couldn't use any of it. So he was for one of the was one of the first time or one of the only times in his life he actually talked to a lawyer. He talked to a lawyer in Faribault, and the lawyer said, "Nah, you don't have anything to worry about. This is going away." And so he after he got out of the hospital, he headed back down to Oklahoma, which is where we got him in bags, early '78, and that
Yeah.
started the whole fentanyl chain. Where he gets busted in bags and goes to Lewisburg and meets Louis Cirillo. But my question would be, well, what if they hadn't? What if they done it right and got the search warrant and
Yeah.
executed the search warrant on the place, and he'd have been locked up in Minnesota? I mean, this would have been a big deal in Little Faribault.
Yep.
Have a big meth trafficker in Faribault, and he probably would have got some time
In Stillwater.
In Stillwater, and he never would have met Louis Cirillo in Lewisburg, and we never would have had the fentanyl issue, and he would, have what if one of those situations where history could have been changed by Little Faribault, Minnesota.
That's right. Yeah. If they would have followed the letter of the law, got the search warrant, then the two of them would have never met, and there would have been the big fentanyl outbreak.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to put too much on the sheriff's deputy. I did that for a little while, and, I mean, stuff happens, but you just wonder if, man, we could have avoided this whole thing.
No, you're right.
If
You're right. You're right. But it was probably, it was one of those things where they thought they had the bust of the century, and they got all hot to want to get it, and they didn't follow procedure. So
yeah,
I'm sure they got reamed out by their boss, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I'm sure that there were some recriminations over that at the time.
Yeah.
The BCA got all the lab. They sent all the lab equipment up to the BCA, and BCA said that was what they would expect to see in a whole year of methamphetamine labs. So, I mean, it was a pretty significant operation, and it could have been different. Things could have been different.
Yep. Yeah. I was surprised because to read that chapter, because now I think the BCA runs a tighter ship. I know a lot of different municipalities run a tighter ship, especially here in the Twin Cities area. Keep in mind, for people who are listening that are from out of state, Faribault is much further south from the Twin Cities metro area. I mean, it's a couple hour journey, but it's and it's a rural area. So, I mean, and not that that's any excuse or anything like that, but at the time,
it's not surprising that he would be in someplace like Albert Lee or Faribault, because he knew that those places have less sophisticated police departments.
Yeah.
And he was taking advantage of that. I mean, like I say, he was pretty aware of how we operated, and he knew that chances that BCA or some other state agency or DEA or some of the more specialized agencies would have a presence in a place like that. He would be dealing with small town police officers or small county sheriff's deputies. And so, there's a reason why he was in Beggs. There was a reason why he was in Faribault. There's a reason why his labs were in places like that, because he was sophisticated enough to know that, hey, this is the quality of opposition that I want to be lined up against. And,
right.
And so, it paid off for him that time.
Yeah, I was just going to say, considering the year and and the product that he's dealing, it makes sense that that's where he would be set up. I mean, he wasn't going to go to Minneapolis, Minnesota in that year and try and run a meth lab. Right. Yeah. He was going to go to somewhere like Albert Lee or Faribault. So that makes complete sense. The book is Lethal Doses, the story behind the Godfather of Fentanyl. John Madinger, I want to thank you so much for being on the program today. Again, fascinating book. I absolutely enjoyed it. There's books that come along that you read and you're absolutely blown away by, that you read and you go, I had no idea, that this chapter in history happened. It happened this way. And it absolutely opened your eyes to history. And I absolutely was blown away by this book. I want to thank you so much for writing it.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to have a chance to talk with you.
I'm absolutely glad that you came on the show. It was my pleasure indeed, John. Thank you so much.
Sure. Anytime.
Thank you. Folks, it's time now for us to lighten things up a bit. It's time now to bring in Jessica Freeberg. And it's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time, the time you've all been looking forward to. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. And with that, we bring in our co-host. She's intelligent, she's witty, she's funny, and you better have bought her book by now, gosh darn it, because she's by now a New York Times bestselling author. Here she is, Jessica Freeberg. Hi, Jess.
Hey, Tim. I love your enthusiasm.
Well, you gotta stay in the positive on this thing, right? So
yeah, let's manifest that.
That's right. We're manifesting New York Times best-selling author. I put it out there. It's got to happen.
It's happening. I can feel it.
It's happening. It's happened right now. It's happened already. I mean, just look for the email from your publisher.
Right. It was an Amazon bestseller before it even released. And I think that is really thanks to everyone who pre-ordered. That was so kind of all of you. So thank you.
That's all right. You're on your way, kid. See, that's how it happens. Just saying.
That's right.
First it's Amazon, then it's Wall Street Journal, then it's New York Times, then it's the world.
That's right. Taking over the world.
That's right. Then it's
one monster book at a time.
Then it's the Hindustan Times bestseller. I don't know what that has to do with anything. But
I don't either, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I think because one of the stories is from the Hindustan Times, I think this week. I have no idea. I just threw that in there. Let's get to our story, shall we?
Let's do it.
We are packed today. And when I say packed, I think that has to do with the not safe for work part of our program.
Oh, no.
Which is extensive today. I'm not going to lie. You got to brace yourself here, Jess. It is. I know some of our audience is going to love this, but we'll leave that for that part of the program. First, I want to start with an interesting story. Not necessarily dumb crime, stupid criminals, but everybody wants to own an axe murder house, right?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, you would think, not only on the paranormal side of things, but on the true crime side of things, wouldn't you love to own an axe murder house and maybe get it for a bargain?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to live there, but it'd be cool to own it. Sure. A vacation spot.
You would think. There's a lot of people that are looking for one for a bargain. This one you're not going to get for a bargain, but it's in a great place. There's a place called the Davis Islands that's right in the Tampa, Florida area.
Mm-hmm.
That is a historic axe murder home. And it is gorgeous. Jess, I'm going to show you this real quick. Take a look at the exterior of this house.
Ooh, yeah, I live there. That looks beautiful.
Yeah. Now wait till I tell you how much this house is going for. You're going to go, I'll pass. That's passable. Now a house like this in Florida is, even though it's gorgeous, it's a nice house. You think, oh, okay, $500,000-$600,000, right? I mean, it looks nice. This historic Tampa home was once the site of a horrendous axe-related homicide in the early 1960s. It's now for sale on Davis Islands. It's located at 51 Albemarle Avenue. The Mediterranean Revival home was built in 1925 by famed developer D.P. Davis and was purchased in 1937 by the late Tampa businessman Burton H. Shepf Sr. and his wife, Raina. Now, Burton was the former president of, I believe it's Miami Trailways Bus Lines, and was the chairman of the Florida Safety Council. Most notably, he ran unsuccessfully for governor in 1940 as an independent with a platform of opposing sales tax, pushing for 9-month school years with year-round pay for teachers. You got to love that. And fighting against 6-lane highways along the Gulf Coast. Pretty good so far, right? Now, the Shepps and their 2 sons lived in the Davis Island home for decades and were considerably active in Tampa social life. According to the numerous newspaper clippings, Raina was accomplished floral designer and well-known around Tampa, often hosting extravagant birthday parties, luncheons, and events in the home. The Shepp house was the weekly site of the Shakespeare Study Club, and in a 1954 article in the Tampa Daily Times, Raina was nominated by the local Hydrangea Garden Circle Club as the best cook this week. So evidently that was a place to go to eat.
Yeah, sounds delicious.
Right? However, on August 7th of 1963, the 61-year-old Raina was arrested by Tampa police after Burton's body was discovered by a neighbor critically injured on a blood-stained mattress in his bedroom at the home.
He did it.
Evidently, he was on the menu.
No.
Yeah. Yikes.
I wasn't expecting her to be the culprit. I thought she'd be the victim.
Right, you would think. Right? According to the Tampa Tribune, police said the bedroom was splattered with blood and that the door had been chopped through with an axe.
Oh my gosh. This is like the Stanley Hotel.
That's right. She was Johnny before Johnny, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Reports at the time show slightly different details of exactly what happened, but police told multiple outlets that when they entered the 2-story house, Raina was standing at the top of the stairs in her nightgown holding an axe with her face and hands covered in dried blood.
Wow, that is quite the visual.
Nothing says guilty like your hands covered in dried blood holding an axe, right? Besides the axe, police said they also found a butcher knife, a hammer, a broken shotgun, scissors, and a baseball bat, all blood-stained.
Dang, she went to town.
Yeah, girlfriend put in work.
He must have really done something bad. He must have made her super mad.
Well, I'm glad you're putting the onus back on him, Jess. I mean, why not? According to the Tribune, police said the entire house was a mess with evidence that someone had been chopping at the walls, woodworks, and doors. The rooms downstairs as well, the officers said, were in disarray with bloody towels and dirty clothing scattered about.
Oh, she just like lost her mind.
Raina lost her shit, if you don't mind me saying. Yeah, she did. Raina told police that she broke down the door to her husband's bedroom after he scolded her for drinking. And said, yes, no, dear, you mustn't drink anymore. Let me go get the axe.
I had too much faith in Raina. I thought, he must have had a girl on the side. No, he just asked her not to drink so much.
No,
that was her reaction.
No, dear. If you'd teetotal in the afternoon, that'd be wonderful, please. I'm imagining him with a British accent.
I like it.
Yeah. And he also said that Anne said that his fatal injuries were a result of her pushing him down the stairs after he hit her with a baseball bat. Okay, so he was a little violent when it came to the drinking. Okay, I take that back. He wasn't proper about it at all. He was like, stop drinking! Boom! And hit her with a bat.
Yeah, change your accent, Tim.
Yeah, all right.
Don't make him so refined.
Stop drinking. Some reports indicate that she had a swollen area visible on her forehead. Ooh, he took it right to the... Ooh, yikes. He went Babe Ruth on the forehead. And I used Babe Ruth because he wasn't a nice man. Some reports I read that part. Burton died from his injuries the next day at Tampa General. So he survived.
Oh, man.
Yikes. A week later, Raina was charged with second-degree murder and was held on a $5,000 bond. This is in the 60s, mind you. That's a big bond. One of her sons later told police that his parents had not been getting along and that his mother was suffering from mental illness. Now, okay, time out. Anybody hit you with a baseball bat? I don't care what they're talking to you about. I don't care if it's, guess what, Jess, it's sunny and 75 outside. Whack! Or hey, quit your drinking. Whack! You just got hit with a baseball bat.
Although we don't know when he hit her with the baseball bat. To play devil's advocate, maybe she had already attacked him with the axe and he was just defending himself.
Okay, all right, I'll give you that. Oh, okay, I'll give you that. It's uncertain exactly what happened to Raina after she was charged. While the death was largely covered by papers around the country, the story disappeared from the media landscape, possibly due to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy a couple of months later. So the story got lost in the media.
Yeah.
Now, as far as this home goes, by the way, Raina died in 1976 at the age of 74. Her and Burton now share a headstone at Myrtle Hill Memorial Park in Tampa.
Oh.
Rest in pieces?
Yeah.
I guess.
Right next to the person who killed you.
Yeah. I don't know that they're necessarily in peace, but maybe pieces. That home, by the way, is currently up for sale. That beautiful, beautiful turmoiled home is for sale. The Shep home is currently asking $1.675 million.
Wow, that is a big price tag for a murder house.
Yeah, it is. No break on that deal. You don't get a break.
Dang.
Listing agent is Jay Powell with Keller Williams Tampa Central. If you're looking for maybe to talk him down a little bit, say I think there might still be some old blood in the floorboards.
Oh, there is. I mean, there was that show on, I can't remember what channel it was on, but there was like a murder house remodel show, which was like everything I love all collided into one show. Mm-hmm. And they would pull up like the floorboards and stuff. And there was always disgusting human matter remaining, no matter what house it was or how long ago the crime was.
Yeah. So maybe you can talk them down 100,000, 200,000. I don't think they're going much further down than that. The housing market, even though there's a shortage of new homes, there's plenty of old homes to be sold. And
yeah,
I don't think they're.
I'm sure it's a great location, though. I mean, being on an island.
Yeah. I think they're probably going to get what they're asking for there.
Somebody will pay it.
That's right. Let's stay in Florida. There's an alarming trend happening in Jacksonville. I want to say this is Jacksonville County. It's in Jacksonville, Florida. This story is more like dumb crimes, stupid officers. A JSO officer has been arrested and accused of kidnapping with a firearm, stalking, and written threats to kill. Now, here's the alarming part of the story, Jess. 13 JSO employees have been arrested so far this year.
What?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
There's a little problem down there in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, an officer with Jacksonville Sheriff's Office was arrested Thursday in Nassau County and accused of multiple charges, including kidnapping with a firearm, written threats to kill or do bodily harm, and aggravated stalking. Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters held a news conference on Thursday evening to announce the serious and deplorable charges against current JSO officer, 42-year-old Brian Housand. I wanted to be clear that this agency stands in solidarity with the victim of these horrible crimes, and I've said many times before, no one is above the law. No one, Waters said. The arrest of the officer marks the 13th employee of the agency to be arrested in 2024.
That's not a good sign.
No. One or two, you might have some bad apples.
13.
13, I think you got to look at the whole entire department.
You need to hire a little better, I think.
Yeah. Waters said Townsend was suspended and put on leave without pay and will eventually be fired. The charge of armed kidnapping is a first-degree felony punishable by life in prison. He was being held on $1 million bond. Waters declined to share details of the case. Listen to this, though, Jess. Good God. I went to go say Townsend or Housand and Jess. Listen to me. Forgive me, Jess. I can't say my words today. Words is hard. Waters declined to share details of the case against Housand, saying any information would come from the investigating agency, the Nassau County Sheriff's Office. A heavily redacted warrant for Housand made clear the charges involved a woman who was previously in a relationship with. So this obviously is a stalking charge having to do with someone that he was involved with. His accuser told investigators Housand sent her threatening emails and messages. Listen to this. Brian, you threatened to kill me. It is reasonable that I should not take you back. This was redacted. It says redacted. Saw you take the rifle out of the gun safe that night in February when you hurt me. You can't undo that. One email from the victim to Housand reads. The woman said on Tuesday she saw what she believed to be a green laser shining into the window of her home and thought it was a kind of laser that could be attached to a gun. She said Housand has a large collection of guns that he owns for personal and professional use. In another incident in July, the woman said Housand came to her house uninvited in his marked JSO patrol car, wearing his uniform, and began banging on the back door. After an argument when the woman refused to get back with him, Housand threatened to kill her and was snapping and unsnapping the holster, carrying his service pistol in an overly threatening manner. She told that to investigators. The woman was able to record the incident on her phone, according to the warrant. Housand was originally hired by JSO in 2005, and since that date, Waters said, he left JSO to work for other agencies, and then he was rehired on 2 separate occasions. So they took him back.
They probably shouldn't have done that.
No. At one point, Housand became a lawyer and is still a member of the Florida bar.
What?
So he can defend himself.
Wow.
Waters said Housand was involved in a few situations with internal affairs that didn't rise to the level of termination, but did not give details on those complaints. Evidently, Jacksonville's the place to be if you're not that great of a cop. Just saying. I got this story from Tom. By the way, if you are a listener of True Crime Tuesday and Dumb Crime Stupid Criminals and have a story for us, you can send it in to tim@darknessradio.com. This story from Rome, Georgia. A Rome woman is arrested for threatening to shoot up a school after failing a test. Never shoot up a school, folks. There's no excuse for shooting up a school, but for failing a test, especially bad reason. Victoria Jade Schaefer, all of 29 years old, of Rome, Georgia. Why is she threatened to shoot up a technical college?
Oh, gosh.
That tells you where she's sitting in life, folks. She was arrested this week after reports said she threatened to do meth and then shoot up the Georgia Northwestern Technical College.
Let's add a little meth on top of it.
Yeah, well, you don't want to shoot up a technical college without a little something in you.
I guess. Here's your fuel.
That's right. Report said that Schaefer told another student, "I failed, makes me want to do meth again, makes me want to shoot up the school." Be better.
Yeah. Why are those your thoughts? Both terrible thoughts.
Right. How about want to grab some McDonald's and go contribute to charity?
Yeah. Or get yourself a pint of ice cream and cry. I mean, there's a better option. You're sad. We get it.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Meth and murder, not the answer.
Right. Not the answer. Thank you, Jess. Schaefer is charged with felony terroristic threats and acts, as she should be. Let's move on. This story is kind of very, very stupid and fits our topic perfectly. Cops bust a furious New York City driver accused of stealing a tow truck with his own pickup attached. In other words, his pickup was being towed. He stole the tow truck. Jess, what's the worst thing you've done to ever stop your vehicle from being towed?
I mean, I've only had it towed when it's breaking down, so I'm only grateful when the tow truck comes.
Same here. Yeah. Here's the story. A suspect has been arrested over the now viral video of an enraged driver stealing a tow truck, hauling away his pickup, then crashing it into multiple cars while his dad defended him Friday, saying he was convinced he was getting robbed. Oh, come on. 55-year-old Russell Leosa was slapped with multiple charges, including robbery, grand larceny, auto, reckless endangerment, leaving the scene of an accident, and 11 counts of property damage for the September 6th mayhem in Sunset Park. That's New York, by the way. Wild video captured the moment the driver exploded as a tow truck driver was set to drive off with his black Chevy Silverado on 53rd Street between 1st and 2nd Avenues. There's the funniest... Can't say what it says because we're not safe for work time. But I tell you what, I'm going to post this story in the description of this program so that you can actually read what the little meme says. Let's just say it says F me. Dude, put my effing truck down. I'm warning you. The suspect, identified as Leosa, yells at the driver. You can watch the video as well. It's quite hilarious. I'm warning you, MFer, he says. Get the F away from my truck, he continues, before jumping into the tow truck and barreling down the street with his truck attached.
Oh, what did he think the outcome was going to be? I don't understand the thought process 99% of the time in these stories. Like, this is going to solve the problem. I'm just going to steal the tow truck and drive away.
Where are you going, to Canada? I mean,
problem solved.
Where are you driving with the tow truck? You think you're going to drive home, drop the truck off, and then just leave the tow truck on the side of the road? They'll find it and everything will be fine?
Yeah, like, I know how to fix this. Steal the tow truck.
That's how a 7-year-old thinks. You know?
It's crazy.
All done. No, there's repercussions. He then slams into several parked cars before his pickup truck tips over, tumbling onto the street. That in the video, which you'll be able to see when you click on the story in the description. Police said he went on a short joyride to 55th Street and 3rd Avenue. In case you can't count blocks, 53rd to 55th is 2 to 3 blocks. Just saying, it wasn't very far. But Leosa's father defended him Friday, saying his son thought he was a robbery victim. Yes, because most tow truck drivers just drive around randomly and pick up trucks.
Right. That's how your car gets stolen.
Yeah, that's how cars get stolen. Tow truck drivers, evil ones, drive around and just take your shit, Jess. That's what happens. He said the tow truck was unmarked. The guy made threatening comments to him, and he thought the guy was robbing his truck, he told the New York Post. God, this guy is a dumb criminal. That's why he was adamant about the situation. I'm not saying that justifies what he did, his father said, how he responded, but the guy caught him by surprise and the guy actually threatened him. Yeah, he threatened him because he took his tow truck.
Yeah, and you were screaming MFer at him and freaking out.
Yeah. He was arrested Monday and has 2 prior arrests, according to cops. Because he's a criminal.
Shocking.
Leosa of East Islip, or Isley Brother, whatever you want to call the town, pleaded not guilty to the charges at his Brooklyn criminal court arraignment because he's stupid. Judge Jennifer Tabride set $10,000 cash bail, which he probably won't make because he thinks he needs to pay it out in pennies. I'm sure. Meanwhile, did you like that one?
I did.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we go to Michigan, where a Macomb County man strapped propane tanks to his car in a bomb hoax to prevent repossession of his car.
Wow.
We're getting creative here, Jess.
We're getting a little bananas, Tim.
Yeah, with the whole car thing. It's funny. We're going to Harrison Township, Michigan, where police arrested a man Tuesday who's believed to have created a bomb hoax in order to prevent his car from being repossessed. I gotta stop real quick, tell you a quick story. I had an old roommate who wasn't in danger of having his car possessed. His car was going to be possessed. So what he did was he managed to keep it from being possessed for 6 months. And what he would do was every night he would park his car at different people's garages every night.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
clever.
He would call somebody for a ride from that garage home. It was the stupidest thing.
Keep moving it.
And it took so much energy. And I'm like, aren't you tired? And he's like,
yeah, just let it go.
He's like, no, I get to keep my car. I'm like, but you have to park it at work. They know where you work. No, you don't understand. I park it like a mile away. And then I walk to work. He kept doing this.
Oh my gosh.
Day after day after day, he kept playing hide the car at all these different places until finally he slipped up. Like he got tired and he couldn't, he had a lot of problems with his legs, and he was diabetic. And he couldn't walk the mile to work. And so he parked it like a block away and some tracer found it. And they towed
him.
They towed his car. And I'm just like, see, that's what you get.
Just playing a game of cat and mouse.
But for 6 months, he managed to hide this car. It was just too funny. Anyways, we'll get back to the story here. Harrison Township. Police arrested a man Tuesday who's believed to have created a bomb hoax in order to prevent his car from being repossessed. The Macomb County Sheriff's Office was called to a home in the 24,000 block of Bradford Drive around 9:05 a.m. for reports of a suspicious situation. Once on scene, police found a propane tank. It was seated in the passenger seat of the vehicle, with electrical wire running from the tank to the inside of the middle console. Another tank was found strapped to the front driver's side wheel of the car with copper wire running underneath the vehicle. Multiple signs were also posted on the vehicle that indicated the car would blow up if it was touched. This is very Hollywood.
Wow, he went all out.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Police closed down the area and the Michigan State Police bomb squad was called in to address the situation. The squad eventually determined the whole thing was a hoax and the tanks were not connected to anything that would cause an explosion. Police then arrested the 45-year-old suspect and will seek a formal charge of device representing or presented as explosive from the county prosecutor's office. The identity of the suspect has not been released, pending formal charges being brought against him. Yeah, so bomb hoax. How easy is it to take 2 tanks, put one in the back seat, one in the side seat, throw a couple of wires under something and go bomb, and and keep your car for a little while, especially with someone who's trying to repossess it. They don't know any better.
Yeah. Terrible idea, though.
Terrible idea. That's for sure. Our next story has to do with an airplane instead of a truck or a car for a change. Now, we've had plenty of stories over the last couple of weeks, Jess, having to do with airplanes going down or airplanes having unruly passengers, and those airplanes going down because of that. Now, with this story, this man is just out of control. And we see this quite a bit. We're going to the San Francisco area. And, there's actually a story that came out this week too, Jess, having to do with the fact that incidents of unruly passengers have gone down lately.
Well, that's good. They went up for a while there, like during COVID and right after COVID.
Yeah. And I don't believe this for a minute because I see at least 3 of these stories a week of people getting unruly on flights that are so bad that they have to stop flights and arrest people. This is no exception. The quote here is, "This airplane is going down." Bay Area man arrested after a San Francisco-bound flight. A Bay Area man faces 20 years in prison if convicted of interference with flight crew members following a flight to San Francisco International Airport on Monday, during which he allegedly tampered with the aircraft's overhead oxygen mask compartment and then assaulted the flight's crew.
Why?
I don't know. The 30-year-old man, that's part of it, he's young, is from Fremont and was on a Frontier Airlines flight from John Wayne Airport in Orange County to San Francisco. Well, that's part of it. He's entitled. On September 9th. According to an affidavit filed with the Justice Department, flight attendants noticed suspicious behavior from a passenger shortly after takeoff. While the plane was ascending over the Pacific Ocean, still below 10,000 feet, the flight crews noticed that oxygen masks in a row of the aircraft had come out of the overhead compartment. Upon investigation, they saw a man tampering with the container. The passenger appeared claustrophobic, and officials said he began yelling obscenities at flight attendants, allegedly claiming, "We're all going to hell, and this plane is going down." Okay, Yosemite Sam. Flight crew attempted to restrain the passenger, but were unsuccessful. According to the affidavit, the passenger allegedly then attempted to choke a flight attendant before he was ultimately restrained by a seatbelt with help from other passengers.
Oh my gosh, he's choking them out? What a psycho.
I'm wondering if there was alcohol served on the flight.
I mean,
if he had a few stimulants
maybe
before he got on, I don't know. Officials said the man then kicked a flight attendant several times in the leg, which caused bruising and swelling that required medical attention. According to FlightAware, Frontier 3581 was then diverted to Ontario International, where it landed around 6 p.m. The flight was rescheduled and landed at San Francisco the following day in the early morning. If I'm on that flight, I'm pissed. The following morning? I mean,
yeah, I'd be so mad.
Orange County to San Francisco is not a long flight.
That's ridiculous. What a jerk.
Yeah. The man was arrested Wednesday on a federal criminal complaint alleging he assaulted flight attendants, and if convicted, faces a statutory minimum sentence of 20 years in federal prison. You would think just the sentence alone would be enough to deter people, but evidently not.
I don't think there's a lot of rational thought going on with some of these situations.
No.
It's just like something flips in their brain and like any rationale is gone.
It's gone. Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. A couple of drug stories for you, and they're interesting ones at that. I believe this one came from Tom as well. Nearly 10 kilos of crystal meth were found in a toy box near Flint Township in a traffic stop. We're going back to Michigan, where, like I said, nearly 10 kilos of crystal meth were seized during a traffic stop in Flint Township on Thursday night. The Flint Township Police Department conducted a traffic stop on a vehicle, and during the search of the vehicle, officers discovered 9.6 kilos of crystal meth, or 21 pounds, concealed inside a children's toy box. That's a lot of meth. The suspect, who has a criminal history of drugs and weapons offenses, was lodged at the Genesee County Jail pending a case review. Here is the picture, Jess, of what this looks like. Here's the child's toy box. Here's the drugs.
Oh.
Look at that.
That's just sad.
Isn't it, though? I mean, that's a lot of drugs to go in a kid's toy box, but geez, I'll tell you.
Hit them with the dolls. They'll never look there.
That's right. They'll never look there. This one, believe it or not, doesn't fall under our not safe for work. But I'll tell you, it's a little
borderline.
It's a little borderline. A woman is busted smuggling 6,000 pounds worth of cannabis in her bra into prison.
Dang.
Yeah. And believe it or not the first time she's done it.
I don't think I could get away with that.
Well, let's just put
Notice.
She must be an A cup going to a D, because that's a lot of, I'm just saying.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Leah Burke was on bail for a similar alleged offense when she got caught smuggling a significant amount of cannabis into Loudham Grange Prison in Nottinghamshire. This is over in the UK. A woman has been busted for trying to slip weed into prison using her bra. Leah Burke was caught in the act at Nottinghamshire lockup in Loudham Grange and was ordered to Nottingham Crown Court, where the true value of her underwear stash was revealed. The court heard Burke attempted to smuggle cannabis with a street value of 250 pounds, but behind bars, the price shot up to a whopping 6,600 pounds to inmates. The 30-year-old woman tried to bolt, saying she wanted to go home, only to be nabbed with the green goods. It turns out she was already on thin ice, having been bailed after a similar offense down in the Thames Valley area. Slapping her with a 15-month stretch, Judge Nirmal Shant KC said the amount found was not for personal use, but was intended for a person who was threatening you and for extensive supply within the prison system. Although it was a relatively small amount, it had much higher value in prison, into the thousands. The judge added, "You have had the best part of 7 months to reflect on that, on remand in prison, and this sentence means you will not be released immediately, but in the near future, because you have served the equivalent of 14 and a half months already." Prosecutor Lucky Tandy. That's a hell of a prosecutor's name, Lucky Tandy.
I like it. It sounds like a stripper.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Revealed a prison search uncovered drugs stashed in Burke's bra. Miss Tandy, and it's a woman named Lucky Tandy, explained once she was arrested, her car in the car park was also searched and was found to contain a similar size package inside the driver's door. So that wasn't her first stop. She's probably, making the prison rounds, like a DoorDash for weed.
Yeah.
Further drama unfolded as cops raided her Liverpool pad, turning up ketamine and cocaine plus digital scales. The prison haul was an estimated whopping 6,600 pounds, as we said. Rigor Purcell on the defense bench claimed Burke had been strong-armed into the offense with nasty threats hanging over her. He told the court the cannabis is worth 250 pounds on the streets, but it goes up so much because of its value in the prison system, and she accepts that. She pleaded guilty at the earliest opportunity, which perhaps demonstrates her remorse. And just this week, she has watched 15 prisoners leave on the government's early release scheme. Had this matter been dealt with earlier, that might have been one of those herself. So then why take the chance? You've got 7 months left, supposedly, according to this. Why take the chance of running drugs into prison? I mean, unless she's being threatened with her life, but even so.
I mean, that is a possibility. Maybe she's just a cog in a wheel of something worse.
True. I don't know. Interesting. Okay, so we got a couple stories before we get to not safe to work or not safe for work today. This story is interesting. A court is telling parents they can't name their child a certain name because this child may be bullied over it.
Oh, must be really bad.
Yeah, well, it's not. I'll tell you, we'll try to shorten it up. It's in Brazil. A Brazilian couple was told by a court that they couldn't name their newborn after an ancient king over fears the child could face bullying. You're going to laugh when I tell you why. Danilo Premola and his wife Catarina Premola from Belo Horizonte plan to name their son Paye after the first black Egyptian pharaoh. Okay? But authorities thought the child would be subjected to bullying in the future, as the name's pronunciation is similar to that of a Portuguese word for a ballet dance step. Do you know what the dance step is?
No. What is it?
A plie. So paille and plie. They're not even close.
No, I wouldn't think those would get confused. And also, who cares?
Right. It's strange. So authorities thought the child would be subjected to bullying in the future, as the name they think is similar. I don't think it is, but they say on paper, plie looks like paille, but the traditional spelling of paille is P-I-I-E. The way they spell it is P-I-Y-E. Still not even close, right?
No.
The Minas Gerais Court of Justice initially blocked the parents from registering the name before a judge on Friday walked back that decision. The couple welcomed their first child on August 31st, but had already chosen the name in honor of the Kushite king and founder of the 25th dynasty of Egypt. They decided on the name after listening to the theme song for 2023 Carnival celebrations while working on choreography at the Academos de Venda Nova Samba School. There was a word there that talked about the Black Pharaoh. Danilo Primola said, we went to research what it was like, and we found the story of Paye, who was a Nubian warrior who fought and conquered Egypt and became the first Black Pharaoh. They chose to name their son in honor of Paye because of the importance of maintaining a link to their African ancestry. Recovering African names, they say, is a powerful way to give a new narrative to the history of Black people. Danilo Primola said, we have a right to educate our children with this strength, this culture, in a way that they have representation in their name. Now, the Minas Gerais Court of Justice initially sided with the Belo Horizonte's registry's office, prohibiting the naming because it could not register first names that could expose their bearers to ridicule. That was the initial finding. In their ruling, court said that pronunciation of the pharaoh's name is similar to that of the Portuguese word plie, which is a ballet dance step. That is why the sound and spelling of the name were preponderant for the rejection, the Court of Justice said, since they would be capable of causing future embarrassment to the child. We know that bullying cannot be combated by prohibiting it, nor can it be combated by oppression, Primola said. Bullying can be combated by studying and working on the ignorance of society as a whole, which I agree with. The legal battle delayed the baby from receiving his required vaccines. He was also late for a screening that is performed when a newborn is about 5 days old to detect rare but serious conditions. Camilla Primola was originally scheduled to go into labor on September 19th. She lost a pregnancy loss in 2020, it says here. I don't know what that means. And found out earlier this year she was expecting the couple's first child, according to Danilo Primola. It was euphoric. It was already planned, and it was something we wanted, he said. In the meantime, we learned about the story of the pharaoh, who was a great Black leader. So there you go. They ended up getting them what they wanted, and Paye is now here.
Good, as it should be.
Yeah. So they ended up overturning the decision. They figured out paille is not plie, which is kind of stupid, to be honest with you.
What a ridiculous waste of the court's time.
Yeah, it really was.
So silly.
Yeah. Okay. Now, we had a story, I believe it was last year, about a North Carolina pastor who was accused of assaulting a McDonald's cook and shoving the victim's head toward the deep fryer. I don't know if you remember this story or not. The pastor ended up pleading this past week on that case. 57-year-old Dwayne Waden, not Dwayne Wade, the basketball player, but Dwayne Waden, was busted in December following a violent confrontation at the High Point restaurant where his wife was employed. Now, Waden arrived at the McDonald's after his spouse, a manager in training, called him to report that the employees were disrespecting her. Why you call your husband as a manager in training to put the employees in line is beyond me, but that's what she did. 45-year-old Latoya Gladney told cops she wanted Waden to assist her with the workplace issue. Waden, cops said, walked into the McDonald's kitchen and began walloping cook Theodore Garlington at the face. So he's just, you listen to my wife.
Dang.
Right? Now, don't you wish your husband would come in and wallop your coworkers just to get them in line? No?
I do not, Tim.
Oh, okay.
I do not wish that.
Okay. Because I don't want to see your husband walloping me in the face. I mean, that would not be fun.
I can't even imagine it.
He also allegedly wrapped his hands around Garlington's neck and began pushing his head toward the deep fryer. Yikes. I don't think I'd be working at McDonald's the next day. I think that's pretty much when I'm giving my notice.
Yeah, all done.
Yeah,
I'm going to get
all
a nice
done.
desk job somewhere.
Not worth minimum wage. Other workers interceded before the victim was rendered golden brown. Garlington suffered a large contusion on the forehead and right eye, along with scratches on his neck. By the way, I have a picture of Pastor Whedon right there, the punching pastor.
Wow.
There he is right there.
He looks strong.
He's strong and pimped out in purple, if you know what I mean. There he is right there. During a recent court hearing, Whedon copped to a misdemeanor. So he did say, I did it. A misdemeanor assault charge, and was sentenced to serve a few weeks in the county jail, while a court order indicates that Whedon's prior number of convictions to be 5. Those priors are not further detailed. Whedon's Facebook page identifies him as pastor of the Elevated Life International Ministries, which is operated from a storefront space in Thomasville that is principally occupied by the Turnaround Christian Center. The online profile lists Whedon as a semi-truck driver and former School of Divinity student at Shaw University in Raleigh. So he delivers goods for the Lord, and then he punches out your employees if they have it coming. So there you go. Speaking of having it coming, it's time now for our Not Safe for Work part of the program. If you have kids sitting around, you probably want to lock them in a closet somewhere so they don't hear this. I'm just saying, I don't know if you're the best parent in the world. If you're at work, you probably want to put the employees in the closet because you don't want them to hear this either. And you probably want to put earmuffs on your boss. We're going to start this here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go, Jess. We're going to talk lawsuits today in the not safe for work category. There's a couple of them. The first one we dedicate to Old Dirty Bastard because he said, yeah, baby, I like it raw. And that's what this first one's about. Trojan condoms contain cancer-causing chemicals. This according to a lawsuit. That's right.
Uh-oh.
That's right, fellas. It's time to take off those condoms because there's a lawsuit.
No.
You now have an excuse. Condoms cause cancer. Although, ladies, I have an out for this. So if you're ready, we each can take a side here.
Okay.
America's #1 condom is under fire over claims that they cause toxic forever chemicals and are unfit for their intended purpose. The claims have been put forward by plaintiff Matthew Goodman in a proposed class action lawsuit filed in Manhattan on Monday against manufacturing company Church & Dwight. Goodman said that independent lab testing of the Trojan ultra-thin condoms revealed the presence of organic fluorine, which is a possible indicator of forever chemicals. PFAs, which stand for per- and polyfluorinated alkyl substances, are a class of chemicals that can be found in a range of everyday products from toilet paper to food packaging, cosmetics, and dental floss. Nicknamed forever chemicals, these compounds break down very slowly over time and stick around in their surrounding environment. The widespread nature of these chemicals is concerning as numerous studies have found associations between PFA exposure and increased blood cholesterol and blood pressure, reduced immunity, reproductive issues, and an increased risk of certain cancers. That according to the U.S. Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. Now, however, these chemicals, are you ready, ladies? Here's your excuse to make your man put the cap back on the thing. That's my best Bill Cosby. The chemicals have been found to pass through human skin. Exactly how much of a risk they pose is not entirely clear. So, buddies, put it back on.
Yeah.
It goes right back through the human skin. Even so, it is these fears that form the basis of Goodman's case. He says, but does it really pass through the skin? Do we really know? Oh, I could still get cancer from it. Free Willy.
Free Willy.
According to the lawsuit, Goodman bought a pack of these condoms before becoming aware of their potential PFAS content. Based on the label, he, Goodman, reasonably believed the product was safe for use on his genitalia. It probably still is, buddy. You probably aren't getting laid anyways. Just saying. Probably still in your wallet from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Had
They're
defendant
expired.
Yeah, it's expired. Yeah. Had defendant disclosed on the label that the products contain PFAS chemicals and the harms that result from contact with PFAS chemicals, he would not have purchased the product. He probably didn't in the first place, right? Or at the very least, he would have only been willing to pay significantly less. So he would have bartered at the counter. He would have said,
He would have got him still, but he would have paid less.
Right. I won't pay you the $20 for the whole box. I'll give you $5. It's got chemicals.
What a guy.
Yeah. The complaint, by the way, Jess, seeks at least $5 million in damages from Church and White for purchasers of Trojan condoms across the country. So you can get your $2.95 back.
Everybody gets a buck.
Yep, everybody gets a buck. Which, opposed to what they got while they were wearing them, which rhymes with buck, is probably not as enjoyable. You know what I'm saying?
See what you did there.
You see what I did there? But who is the independent lab that found the organic fluoride in the condoms in the first place? Well, on February 6th, earlier this year, advocacy blog Mamavation conducted a study into the presence of PFAS in common condom and lubricant brands across the U.S. The group sent 29 different condoms and lubricants on the market today to an EPA-certified laboratory to test for that stuff. And specifically, they were testing for the presence of organic fluoride. They're the ones who found it. So even though Mamavation called for the removal of the PFAS from those products, should we be concerned about the results? Mamavation says no, Jess. We shouldn't be concerned at all. In fact, they say when you add up the total PFAS, not a thing to be worried about. So there you go.
Yeah.
Another frivolous lawsuit. I just thought it was interesting. This guy, much ado about nothing. It was kind of funny. All right, on to our next not safe for work story. Why is it? Okay, so I'm going to ask you something here, Justin. All the stories we've covered about people who get nude and commit crimes, why is it like when we get nude women who do things in public, it doesn't seem like they do much when they get arrested. Nude men seem to get naked and be very productive, but you can't get them to do anything when they're clothed. Why is that? Is it that is it like they're looking to get busy and they think if I get naked, some woman will see me and they'll be like, that guy, he's got a lot going on. Look at all the stuff he's accomplishing when he's naked.
Yeah, look at how he's hanging.
Yeah, look at how he's hanging. I think I'll take advantage of that. Look at him getting all that stuff done when he's naked. I've never figured that out. I don't get that.
I don't understand it myself, Tim. I don't think we're ever going to be able to answer this question.
Well, this story got me perplexed. So allow me to take us to Alabama.
Okay.
The home of naked men who get a lot of stuff done. I don't know what this is. A nude man is arrested after allegedly attempting to take an Alabama police officer's patrol car.
Oh.
He's industrious. Madison police are attempting to discover the identity of a nude man who law enforcement officers say attempted to steal a patrol car Thursday afternoon after a string of incidents along a busy highway. The incident happened about 1:35 p.m. when police from Madison and Huntsville responded to multiple 911 calls in an area on Alabama 72 West and Promenade Park or Point Parkway. Calls from Madison Bowling Center, Burger King, Walmart, and Mr. Car Wash reported that a nude man tried to enter people's vehicles, breaking windows and assaulting people. So, he was trying to make friends. I don't know what that's all about.
So weird.
Yeah. Well, when you're naked, you got to meet people, I guess. Callers also reported the man was possibly dragged by a vehicle after trying to enter it while it was occupied.
Oh, a little road rash.
I would drive very quickly, too, if someone came to my door naked and trying to get in.
Yeah.
Well, depending on how they looked. I mean, I'm a discriminating type. I'm not going to lie. I'll just put that out there. Madison police arrived on the scene and made contact with the man on Promenade Point Parkway. According to police, the unidentified man attempted to enter and steal an officer's patrol car, and the officer used force to detain the man, as would be expected. He's naked after all. I'd taste the shit out of him, too. I'm just saying.
Yeah, tase, cuff and stuff, throw him in the back.
Yeah. Huntsville police are investigating the alleged crimes that occurred prior to the officers arriving. Madison police arrested the man for the attempted theft of the police vehicle and other alleged public order crimes. He was transported to Huntsville Hospital for medical treatment and will be jailed upon his release. Police said the man's identity is still being verified, probably because he didn't have any ID on him. Where are you going to put it?
Exactly.
You got one spot, Jess, and I'll tell you this much. If I'm a cop, I'm not reaching for it.
Nope. Leaving it alone.
It can sit there, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not getting it. Neither is my partner. Just saying that. All right, our next story. We're going to Michigan, and I've got a conundrum for you. You're at your house, and a crime is occurring in your neighbor's yard. Now, I'm going to be very specific about the crime here, Jess. It involves your neighbors, of course. Or does it? All you see is two people in a car, or two people on the driveway next to a car. There's a little going on. Do you report the people? And if so, do you allow, we'll put it this way. Do you call it in, one? And two, if it's put on the news, do you call in and say, if there's video of it, let's say your Ring doorbell camera captures it.
Oh, no.
Do you say, I know those people? And do you call in and say, I know those people? And do you report that you know those people and get them arrested?
Yeah, our cameras would definitely catch it. And I don't know. I guess if it was my neighbors themselves doing it, I'd probably be less inclined to call it in, to have a personal conversation with them. But if it was some random people in my neighbor's driveway doing that, I would definitely call that in. Okay. Because I don't know how one is worse than the other, but
I don't know. But this story is bizarre because this particular story, this particular whole scenario is just bizarre. As a couple attempted to have sex in a Farmington Hills driveway. First of all, why a driveway?
But was it their driveway?
No.
Oh, yeah. See, that's more disturbing to me that random people would be in my neighborhood just getting it on in our driveways. That's, yeah.
Yeah. But they, when the urge hits. So this couple are having sex in a Farmington Hills driveway. And I don't know what's more creepy, Jess, the fact that they found a place in a driveway to have sex. It wasn't their own driveway they had sex in. Yeah. They just didn't find a better place to have sex. I don't know. The whole thing's creepy, right?
I feel like anywhere would be better, like practically anywhere. I mean, especially now with everybody, like we have cameras in front of our house and the doors and also like above our garage. And you just can't do that in residential areas anymore and get away with it. Just go find a better public park or something.
Right. Everybody,
advocating for that, but
a remote mountain somewhere. Everybody has cameras, right?
Anywhere would be better.
But here's the thing. Okay, so they obviously caught it on camera. Here's the picture, right?
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
why?
They got them on camera. I mean, if you're watching a video, if you're listening to this on audio, if you see the video version of this at darknessradioshow.com, they've got them on camera.
Yeah, and things are blurred out. There's definitely
Yeah, I mean,
stuff going on.
No shame in their game. So police in Farmington Hills are asking for the public's help in identifying, and this is the thing, they put this on the news.
Oh my gosh.
Police in Farmington Hills are asking for the public's help in identifying two people who were captured on camera attempting to have sex in a stranger's driveway. The incident happened Monday, September 9th. According to authorities, a silver Toyota Corolla backed into a home's driveway. So they exposed their license plate.
What the heck?
Mm-hmm.
No thought. Like literally no thought of consequences from this.
No. The couple then exited the vehicle, pulled their pants down, and prepared to have sex when they were interrupted by a passing vehicle. So they didn't even take to the back seat. They're just like,
what?
Let's get down on this nice, comfortable tar and do it, baby. Ow. The incident, including the couple's exposed genitals, was captured on the home's doorbell camera. Police said a young boy was expecting a delivery and opened the security camera's live stream while at school after getting notified of motion detected in the driveway.
No.
Yes. He's like, that's not my model airplane.
Just went from bad to worse.
Wait a minute. Mommy and Daddy are making sandwiches again.
Like, hold on. It's in the middle of the day. Like, it's not even evening. It's not even under the cover of darkness. It's just like boldly in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah. Like, hey, this tar looks good. Why don't we pull over here? Anyone who recognizes the two, what, from their flashing asses, you're going to recognize the two of them? Or has any information is asked to contact the Farmington Hills Police Department.
So bad. That is one of the worst stories.
Isn't that something? You think that's bad? I got worse.
Oh no.
Yes, I got worse.
Okay, bring it.
A voyeur and predator of the worst kind, a Missouri mom sues a cop for allegedly stealing her nude selfies meant for her husband during a traffic stop.
What?
Oh, yeah. We're getting worse, Jess. Here we go. A 24-year-old Missouri woman filed a $25,000 lawsuit on Friday, calling a local cop a sexual voyeur and predator of the worst kind over what she said was a traffic stop that turned into an invasion of privacy. The plaintiffs in the lawsuit are identified as Jane and John Doe, a married couple living in Florissant, who have several children. They sued the Florissant Police Department and an officer identified only as Joe Smith, whose true identity they do not know, and who the department says is no longer employed as a police officer. According to the complaint, Smith runs amok in the city, this is a quote, victimizing people like Jane Doe. The filing details a series of events that occurred in February of 2024 when Smith pulled Jane Doe over for a traffic stop due to a broken taillight. The officer allegedly asked Doe if she had insurance, and curiously, Officer Smith told plaintiff that she needed to pull up proof of insurance on her phone and show it to him. Doe said that when she unlocked her phone to show her insurance, the officer abruptly took her phone back to his police vehicle without her consent, disconnected the Bluetooth connection with the woman's car, and remained in his car with the phone for about 10 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. Ultimately, the lawsuit says Smith returned the phone and drove away without issuing a ticket. I wonder why.
Not any evidence of his crime.
Yeah. The following July, Doe was contacted by the FBI in what she said was not a pleasant experience. Agents asked Doe to identify a photograph of a naked woman that had been printed and enlarged. Yikes.
Oh, no.
According to the lawsuit, Doe was shocked to find that the photograph was of herself. And it was a photograph that she had only ever exchanged with her husband. According to the filing, the FBI alerted Doe that the picture of her was not the only explicit photo they discovered in Smith's possession. Doe asserted in the complaint that Smith scrolled through her phone voyeuristically viewing naked photos of both her and her husband and their intimate messages, then used his own phone to take pictures of Doe's pictures. Doe said that since the incident, she has been incredibly disturbed and suffered humiliation, severe emotional distress, and a shattering of her trust. Plaintiffs have lost all faith in the Florissant police and grow nervous whenever they see an officer, the filing said. Doe said that she has She said that she has suffered severe anxiety as a result of the incident and has incurred related medical expenses. Doe brought claims for invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent infliction of emotional distress, trespass to chattels, negligent hiring, negligent retention, negligent supervision, and negligent training, and requested $25,000 in damages. That's it. $25,000 in damages.
Yeah.
That's it.
She could get more than that, I would think.
I would think she could go for $1 million.
Yeah.
At least, but no. The Florissant Police Department noted that the following statement on Facebook on Wednesday. They claim that they're aware of the lawsuit alleging officer misconduct while on duty. They say they're deeply concerned by the allegations and want to assure the community that they take any claim of officer misconduct very seriously. The safety of everyone in their community remains their top priority. They hold their employees to a high standard of integrity and expect them to treat every member of the community with dignity and respect. The FBI St. Louis Division is leading the investigation into the matter, and the department is cooperating with the investigation. The officer in question is no longer employed by the city of Florissant, and there is no indication that any member of the Florissant Police Department is involved in the alleged misconduct. The plaintiffs believe there might be other victims, according to CBS affiliate KMOV. Prosecutors also reportedly are investigating to determine whether to bring criminal charges. If you think that's bad, if you think that's depraved, I got another level.
Oh, no. We just keep getting worse and worse, Tim.
There's only a couple stories left, Jess, and then we're done for the day. I swear to you. I swear to you.
Put on my seatbelt, buckle up.
Your gardens are not safe if you live in Northwest D.C. We go to Washington, D.C., Jess, where a man is wanted for a sex act with a cucumber.
What? No. I'm going to have to purge my mind after this episode.
I told you this is going to be one of the most depraved episodes. Well, I didn't tell you that, but I'm telling you.
I'll have to go watch the Hallmark Channel or something.
That's right. You're going to have to watch a Christmas movie on the Hallmark Channel after this and clear your brain. You have to scrub your brain with bleach.
All right, let's have it. Lay it on us.
We go to Washington, D.C., where police said they were investigating after a homeowner's camera caught a man performing a sex act on himself with a cucumber in her driveway. What is it with driveways in this episode?
Oh, no place is safe.
Stay out of people's driveways. If you're going to do something depraved, go in their backyard.
Yeah, keep your weird kinks in your own driveway.
The Metropolitan Police Department said it happened around 5:30 p.m. at dinner time to a cucumber. That could have been somebody's pickle. Happened around 5:30 p.m. on Friday, September 6th. In the Truxton Circle neighborhood, not far from Dunbar High School. DC News Now obtained video of the incident from the owner. I don't want to see it. But there's pictures. From the owner of the security camera, who hoped sharing the footage, which she posted on Reddit, yes, it's out there on Reddit, would help police identify the man in order to protect her neighbors and students. Catherine Baker said, after reviewing the footage, I was so disgusted and freaked out. By the way, this is what, did this man smell it or eat it afterwards? Look at, this is what it looks like, Jess.
What is he doing? I don't want to know exactly.
Is he smelling it or eating it afterwards? By the way,
no, is he taking it home in a basket?
Darknessradioshow.com if you're listening to the audio and need to see this on video. Oh, what is he doing with that?
I don't know. I hope he's not using it for sexual pleasure and then taking it home to eat it.
Did he go back door and front door on that deal, or what did he do?
I don't know. What does a man do with a cucumber sexually? I can't
He puts
understand this.
Jess, when a man loves a cucumber, he puts it in his anus. But other than that,
I mean, that's about the only thing you can do with it. And then he's literally carrying it away in like a lunchbox or something.
He could give it oral. I'm just saying. But it was,
oh man.
Sorry, I had to give you that graphic description, but it was around dinner time when Baker's camera recorded a man with an apparent lunchbox entering her driveway, and he brought it from home. What?
What? Why? I thought he must have stolen it from her garden or something, but he brought his own cucumber to her house?
He's industrious?
Wow. He's got some serious issues. This is the next level.
It was around dinner time when Baker's camera recorded a man with an apparent lunchbox entering her driveway and lodging a cucumber in the grill of Baker's SUV. The video shows a man checking to see if the coast is clear before turning his back to the SUV and beginning to use the cucumber in the sex act. I almost said something else. I want my neighbors to know to keep an eye out for this person. I want parents to be mindful. There's a lot of kids. They're high school students. They walk themselves to and from school, but we all have to be vigilant about this kind of thing. Oh my God. You have to see this picture. You have to see this picture.
Oh my gosh. He lodged it in the grill of the car.
Yeah, and then he did that.
Oh my God. I'm so disturbed. I didn't know what to say anymore.
Well, he probably needed an entry point. It was too big to fit.
Oh, no.
The police report Baker filed details something else that is clear in the video. The man chose to keep going. He comes around the passenger side of the SUV, then performs a sexual act again. He appears to notice the security camera before putting the cucumber back in the lunchbox and then walks down the adjacent alley. It was the eye contact that really unsettled me because it then continues for longer than one would imagine, Baker said. And of course, then he saves the cucumber for later. So it really leaves one with a lot of questions that no one wants to have on their mind, Baker continued, who had not seen the man prior to his appearance in the video. DC's indecent exposure law says that any public penetration for sexual gratification violates the law. Penalties include up to a fine of $300, prison time of no more than 90 days or both. Outside Dunbar High School Tuesday, Safe Passage Ambassador Vinia Nar told DC News Now, there are children walking around, neighborhood kids, elementary school, middle school, and high school, so it's just a kid-friendly neighborhood, so we definitely want him out of the way. But who's looking out for the cucumbers, Jess? That's what I want to know.
Poor cucumber. What did that cucumber ever do to anyone?
Nothing. That cucumber has rights too.
That's right.
Has a right to be pickled. And not assaulted, if you know what I mean. I mean, maybe later in the brining process, but...
Yeah. He gets picked and he's all excited. He's like, maybe I'm going to be a pickle. Maybe I'm going to get chopped up and get salt and peppered.
Maybe
then he gets stuck in this lunchbox and he's like, oh God, no.
Maybe I'll be in a salad someday. And then all of a sudden, hey, wait, what's this
salad?
What's this dark tunnel? It's really shitty in here. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Go figure. It doesn't get better, Jess. It doesn't get better.
See how it can get worse. I'm afraid. I'm very afraid.
Well,
let me take a drink of my tea.
Yeah,
I gotta clear my palate.
Let's take a drink, both you and I. Ready?
I wish this was vodka.
I do too. Yeah. All right, and here we go. A woman is again busted for a domestic dildo battery. We go to Florida. Not once, but twice. She's a repeat dildo offender. and a repeat of a 2022 accident or incident. It was an accident the first time. The second time, it's on purpose, if you know what I mean. This Floridian was jailed in a sex toy tiff. For the second time in 2 years, a Florida woman has been arrested for a dildo-related domestic battery. 35-year-old Chelsea White and her boyfriend were in the kitchen about to eat when the man discovered that his missing glass dildo was inside White's backpack in the couple's Fort Pierce residence. This is when we need to stop and say, why is it the man's dildo in glass dildo at that?
I was wondering, but, to each their own.
That's right. And why is she the one who stole his dildo and has it in her backpack? Let's continue. During the 11 p.m. tussle that ensued, White and the 35-year-old victim exchanged assorted blows, and not the nice kind. After the pair briefly separated, the man told cops White began hitting him again after he went to grab the backpack. White was standing in the kitchen and threw the glass dildo at her beau. The dildo missed its target, instead hitting a door and waking the couple's child.
Oh, they have children. That's great.
This is when you shouldn't see mommy and daddy's fight over the dildo. Just saying.
I wonder if the dildo shattered. I mean, it's glass. Did it break into a bunch of pieces?
I'm wondering that as well. Let's find out. Yeah. White subsequently grabbed the bag and walked away from the property. She was located hours later and arrested for domestic battery. White, who was locked up in the county jail in lieu of a $1,000 bond, was arraigned Wednesday on the misdemeanor count. Her next court appearance is scheduled for October 4th. When questioned by deputies about the recent confrontation, the victim said that White was arrested in the past for a similar incident when they got into an altercation over a dildo. They can't share their sex toys, Jess.
Why can't they just get along?
Maybe they should
buy two glass dildos, one for him, one for her.
And they should etch him and her in the dildo. They should go to a glass maker and, put their names in.
Anniversary gift. Done. Problem solved.
Right? And then they don't have to share. And then they can get along. Marital bliss.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so they had not their first altercation. White was busted in late 2022 when a verbal argument over a handbag and a sex toy turned violent. White, investigators charged, kicked and bit the victim, who had asked White to return the sex toy to him because he owned it. White, however, refused to give the sex toy back to the victim. Oh, kids. White subsequently was found guilty of battery and sentenced to 12 months probation. She was ordered to pay about $800 in fines and court fees and was required to complete a batterer's intervention program. When really, what, 150 for a glass dildo? I don't know. I haven't priced glass dildos lately, Jess.
I was wondering, are they just so expensive they can't afford to buy more than one? Maybe glass is really expensive.
It could be. But it's more expensive to do $800 in court fees because you're fighting over one. It is unclear the same dildo, if it was the same dildo involved in the 2022 and 2024 episodes, really unclear if they'd washed it in between then. So I brought that up. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. But hey, if you're going to go all the way. By the way, here's the lovely queen that keeps battering her husband with the dildo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
he looks a little sad.
Yeah, she does, doesn't she? She looks like she doesn't know how to stop squinting. That's must be a sharp glass dildo. I don't know. Yeah. All right. I think we're finally down to. I do have a. Oh no, we're down to the last two. I do have a palate cleanser at the end, though.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I need it.
I have a mind clearer at the end. Okay. This story, actually, I've got a bit of a sidebar that will prepare us for the last story, which is traumatizing. Here's your palate cleanser. Not the palate cleanser at the end, but here's your sidebar. Here's your sidebar. This one was sent to me by a listener. Has nothing to do with anything other than shaving a haircut.
Okay.
Your jiggly bits. Here we go. Size matters in Thailand when you're going to get a haircut. A Thai barber goes viral for his pricing list based on your penis size. I don't know what this has to do with a crime other than if you're getting shortchanged, you're getting shortchanged, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. A barber in the central province of Ayutthaya went viral on Thai social media for charging customers based on the size of their penis rather than the length of their hair. A picture of the service price list at the barber shop in Ayutthaya was shared by numerous Thai news agencies and netizens. The pricing list stated small penis 40 baht, medium penis 60 baht, large penis 80 baht, and modified penis 100 baht.
Wait.
Yeah.
Are they modifying it?
Well, maybe, like you had one put on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like you originally didn't have one, but now you do.
Okay. I'm following you.
Yeah. You know what I mean? The barber, 40-year-old Apirak T. Klinbuppa, shared in an interview with Channel 3 that he opened the barbershop just 3 months ago and received very positive feedback. He believed that the service fees based on penis size played an important role in attracting customers. Apirak explained that he had been searching for his dream job for over 8 years and had worked in various industries before finding happiness as a barber. His shop, located near one of Ayutthaya's popular tourist attractions, Prazak Nahung Loang, was decorated in a vintage style to match with historical attractions. Apirak mentioned that he had not yet named his barbershop and had not planned any advertising for it. He did not expect the humorous service fee to make his business go viral, explaining that it reflected his personality. Evidently, it's measuring wangs. That's his personality. So there you go.
Does he make customers prove it? Like how?
I think he does. He has to.
Oh my God. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, he's not cutting their pubic hair, is he? Like, he's cutting their hair.
Well, he says the service fee actually depends on the customer's age and hairstyle, like in other barbershops. He says, I charge children, such as those in primary school, the small penis fee of 40 baht. High school students are charged the medium penis fee of 60 baht, while adult customers pay the large penis fee of 80 baht. Any customer wanting a more complex hairstyle is required to pay 100 baht.
So that's like saying they're kids and, oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah. So,
like a kid's meal.
Yeah, like a kid's meal. So 12
and under.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not
sad if you're a grown-up who qualifies for the child price, though. That's sad.
Mm-mm.
That's a bummer.
Wouldn't you? How would you like it if, okay, so you go in, you're a guy, you go in and you're like, yeah, I'm going to have to pay the 80 baht, give me the 80 baht. And he goes, you 40.
Yeah.
I mean, how would you feel if you're like, no, I'm not 40, I'm 80. Yeah, no, you 40. And then he laughs about it. No, you 40.
That's kind of funny, though. That's kind of funny.
That's hysterical. You 40. I would hate that.
If I was a guy, I would go to him just because he clearly has a good sense of humor.
I would too. But no, I'm getting the 40 every time. Actually, you know what? You know what I would get with this haircut? I'd get nothing because I shaved my own head.
I was going to say, it's probably free. You got to do that yourself, right? Just a little razor.
Yep. I don't go to a barber. So
no.
Yep.
My husband does his own hair too. I just have to supervise and make sure he doesn't miss any strays in the back.
Does he?
Yeah, I just double check for him. He's like, did I get it all?
You never do when you have one of those automatic razors, or when you have one of those automatic razors. Listen to me. When you have one of those head shavers.
No.
Yeah. Have you bought him one of those head shavers?
No, you're going to have to send me a link.
I will. I'll send you a link to one of those.
Get him one for his birthday.
You never miss. You never miss. That's for sure. All right. We've delayed the trauma long enough. Actually, for you ladies out there, I think we've got the perfect gift for Mother's Day.
Oh, no.
All right. I got to admit, I saw this story elsewhere, and I had to bring it up here because, Jess, it's about time for ladies to get their revenge. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, I like a little good woman revenge.
Here we go. A state senator who flipped to GOP is accused of making a staffer perform oral sex to the point where he is now in a wheelchair. That's right.
She crippled him?
She crippled him. He's now filed a lawsuit.
Oh, my.
This now makes her a criminal.
How does one cripple someone? I'm ready for this
You're
story.
about to find out.
Oh, my.
Let's just put it this way. I'm going to make a joke here that only Minnesotans will understand. Either this guy is dedicated to his job, or he is so out of touch with being intuitive with this woman that he's like a Minnesotan trying to find a winter carnival medallion in a snowbank. He can't find a clue, if you know what I mean, right? He doesn't have a clue.
Oh, man.
Did you get that joke?
I did, of course.
Nobody in the audience besides Minnesotans knows what that means.
They're all laughing.
Let me explain the joke to those of you who don't know. The St. Paul Pioneer Press has a winter carnival medallion hunt every year for the St. Paul Winter Carnival. You have to read the clues in the St. Paul Pioneer Press every day in order to find the winter carnival medallion. Most of the time it's hidden in a snowbank. If you can't find the winter carnival medallion in a snowbank, you're stupid because they give you obvious clues.
Yes.
All right. With that, a staffer injured himself so badly giving oral sex to a state senator that he ended up in a wheelchair, according to a lawsuit. Chad Condon claims that California Senator Marie Alvarado Gill had to push his wheelchair around a casino after he gave her oral sex in a cramped car seat. Wish you guys could see Jessica.
I mean, at least they weren't doing it in someone's driveway.
Yes, at least it wasn't in a driveway, right? Although if they could have stretched out in a driveway, he might not have been in the wheelchair. She continued to make sexual comments as she pushed him around the casino, he claims. He got humiliated afterwards.
I fully expected this to be a male senator and a female performing oral sex on him as the other way around. So that is the first thing to blow my mind.
Oh, yes, Jess. Sit back and enjoy. You ready for this?
Yes.
Condit has since recovered the use of his legs and is suing Alvarado Gill for sexual harassment, retaliation, and violation of California labor law. Newsweek sought email comment from attorneys for Condit and Alvarado Gill and from Alvarado Gill's office on Tuesday. Condit, who is Alvarado Gill's chief of staff, claims in the lawsuit that the senator created a hostile work environment that was leaden with sexual discussion. Poor baby. Alvarado Gill also talked about other staff members' sex lives to plaintiff and showed him her phone showing other staff members' location. She commented that the staff member was at a hotel effing some guy, the lawsuit alleges. Condit claims that Alvarado Gill sought oral sex from him as a way of showing his subordinate position. The lawsuit alleges that the last time he had to give her oral sex was at a staff retreat. During the last occasion where plaintiff performed oral sex as demanded by Alvarado Gill, plaintiff suffered a back injury while performing in a car seat while his body was having to twist and contort in the confined space of the car, the lawsuit alleged. Plaintiff later went to the doctor and discovered that the injury was more severe and that the plaintiff had suffered 3 herniated discs in his back and a collapsed hip.
Oh my gosh. Just my brain is melting right now from the story.
Evidently, if you have 3 herniated discs and a collapsed hip, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, but I mean, this is terrible. Like, he felt like he had to do this for work. I hope they throw the book at her as they would a man if this was on the other foot.
The lawsuit says that after being discharged from the hospital, Condit's wife drove him to a staff retreat after party at a casino.
He's married?
I wonder if the wife gets as good a treatment at home as Alvarado Gill does.
Oh my gosh.
Alvarado Gil took charge and pushed plaintiff around the casino in a wheelchair. Then Alvarado Gil made a sexual remark, the suit says. I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, it's just...
It's so bad.
It's... Can you imagine? You're trying to service your boss that great. You herniate 3 discs and you prolapse a hip. You have to go to the hospital. You're in a wheelchair and she's pushing you around going, well, you didn't get me to the mountaintop there, Gimpy. What are you going to do for an encore?
Oh.
I mean, it's just, yikes. Right?
This is bad all the way around.
Alvarado Gil appeared to enjoy her power and demanded this show of loyalty on several occasions. There was no sexual intercourse. Rather, it was Alvarado Gil treating this demand as a perk of her power, and that plaintiff would be a tool to service her continual demand, asking if he would kiss it.
Yikes.
Plaintiff was demeaned and meant to feel empty and subordinate to his boss, a California state senator with power over his career and livelihood, according to the lawsuit. Alvarado Gil's attorney, Ognjen, I believe it is Gavriloff, has rejected the allegations made by Condon. In a statement to the New York Post, Gavriloff called Condon a disgruntled former employee who's telling an outlandish story. I don't know, if you've got medical records showing you've got 3 herniated discs and a screwed up hip, I think you're telling the truth.
I mean, if it's not fabricated and this is real, she's a bad person.
He said Condon's allegations were bogus, financially motivated claims. Alvarado Gil is known for switching from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party in August, saying that Democrats' left-wing ideology made it unrecognizable from the party that she joined. What that has to do with the cost of whatever and whatever has nothing to do with the fact that, by God, she crippled a man with the iron vag.
Oh, there's her legacy.
That's her legacy right there. That's how she's going to be known in Congress. Just saying. All right, I got a palate cleanser before we end Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals today. It has to do with a medical call in Indiana. It turned into something completely different, Jess. Here's the story. Emergency responders in Indiana experienced a first when a medical call ended with firefighters rescuing a monkey that got loose and that scaled a building.
Aw.
Yeah.
He was probably scared.
He probably was. I believe it is Luce, Luce, Fire Territory, cited a Facebook post that firefighters responded alongside Spencer County EMS and the Spencer County Sheriff's Office to a call for medical assistance in Sandridge, and were confronted with a first for all 3 departments. The post said responders tending to the patient learned their monkey had gotten loose and scaled the building and could not get down on its own. Firefighters were able to safely bring the monkey down, and it was cared for by deputies while EMS tended to its owner. So,
aww. Was the man with the yellow hat okay?
Yes, the man with the yellow hat was just fine. Thank you for asking, Jess. That's a good spin on it. And that's how we end Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals for today. The man with the yellow hat. Oh, come on. Man with the yellow hat. All right. So you have 2 books that are out now.
I do have 2 books that are out. They're officially out in the world. You can get them on Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble, whichever you prefer. Ghostly Tales of Pennsylvania and Monsters of the Northeast.
That's right. That's right. And you can get those in the link in the description of this program. Also, the Palmer trips are available. They're up. You can still get your discount. You better hurry, though, because I have a feeling this discount's coming off the table if you don't take advantage of it soon. So go book that trip to the Palmer. Jess and I will be up there along with Ghost Stories Inc. And it's going to be a fun time. There's a theme.
Yeah, Speakeasy Spirits. Wear your best 1920s gear.
That's right.
Friday night for a party.
That's right.
Our band and everything.
I'm looking up zoot suits, and I got to try and find it in my size. I'm shrinking, so I got to try and find one in my size, a zoot suit.
Yes. You have to get all fancy, Tim.
That's right. I'm going to.
I got a flapper dress. I'm super excited to wear it again. It's so pretty.
There you go. So that is coming up in November. Also, tomorrow on the big show, Supernatural News and the return of Molly Fox.
Yay! I'm excited for Mally to come back. We missed her.
Yes, we have. So Mally will be back tomorrow and a special guest on Thursday to be revealed. So there you go. Lots of big stuff this week. What else? That's about it. That's all I got for today. So thank you so much for joining us, Jess, today, and we appreciate it. And we got Supernatural News tomorrow. So that's what we got. That'll do it for today. Thank you so much for joining us today on the big program right here on True Crime Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow for Supernatural News right here on Darkness Radio.